Hello everyone. If you like this audiobook and want to listen to more, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video, like it as well, enjoy.
Chapter 31, Boundless Skies. Stephen soared through the crisp, clear air, breaking through cloud banks like they were nothing more than misty curtains in his way. Every ascent felt exhilarating, every rush of air past his face was like music playing to the rhythm of his heart. Flying wasn't just about power, it was about freedom. It was about feeling like he belonged to something bigger, something limitless. It had become routine, almost ritualistic. Every few days he'd escape to the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, basking briefly in the direct, unfiltered sunlight. Each time, it energized him, filled him with a warmth that seeped deep into his bones and stayed with him long after he descended back to the surface. Today felt no different. Stephen had wandered out to the mall, telling himself it was to pick up a new sketchbook. But truthfully, his destination never really mattered. He was there because no one was home to stop him, and the skies above the mall parking lot were beckoning. With a swift, subtle glance around to make sure no one was paying attention, he ascended quietly, barely causing a stir in the breeze around him. Once safely above the clouds, he cut loose. Accelerating at blinding speed, the world fell away, distant and muted. Higher and higher he rose, the air thinning, pressure dropping, but Stephen was unaffected. If anything, he felt invigorated, the stark sunlight stronger up here, feeding him energy, surging through his cells, sharpening his senses. The silence was profound, just him, the sunlight, and the endless blue. Floating gently, arms spread wide, he turned slowly, soaking in the unobstructed sun rays. For a moment, he was completely at peace. The warmth surged inside him, electric, vibrant, tangible. He smiled quietly, whispering to himself, "This never gets old." Just as Stephen was about to descend again, a tiny flash of movement at the edge of his vision made him pause. He squinted, confused. It wasn't a bird or a plane. He knew what those looked like from up here. No, this was different. This moved deliberately, sharply, like someone else was flying. A chill suddenly shot down his spine. A feeling of unease replaced his earlier serenity. He stared more intently. The distant figure paused, floating still as if aware it had been noticed. Stephen felt his heart pound sharply. For a brief moment, both figures hovered silently, suspended high above the earth, each acutely aware of the other's presence. Slowly, cautiously, Stephen began to close the distance. Whoever, or whatever, this was, they weren't supposed to be here. He knew enough about Earth's heroes by now, and he recognized none that matched this figure's distant silhouette. The stranger seemed to mirror his cautious approach, drifting closer. As the distance shrank, Stephen could make out details clearly. A figure in white and gray, a muscular build unmistakably similar to his father's, a Viltrumite. His heart nearly stopped. He had only seen others like his father in pictures and occasional conversations that Nolan quickly ended whenever questions went too deep. But there was no mistaking this man for anything else. Stephen halted abruptly, fists clenched instinctively. The Viltrumite stopped as well, staring at him silently. Moments passed tensely before the stranger spoke, his voice sharp and curious, carrying clearly in the thin atmosphere. "What an interesting creature," he said, eyes narrowing slightly with a hint of amusement. "Perhaps I should help Omni-Man eliminate some future problems." Stephen's chest tightened sharply, adrenaline flooding his system. Without thinking, he spun rapidly, turning to escape. His heart pounded wildly, panic overriding his usual careful control. The hesitation was costly. Instantly, the Viltrumite surged forward like lightning, appearing directly in Stephen's path. Stephen barely had time to brace himself before a heavy fist smashed into his stomach with enough force to shatter concrete, launching him backward through the air. Pain radiated through his core, fierce but manageable thanks to his remarkable durability. Stephen spun, quickly regaining control. He narrowed his eyes, inhaled sharply, and pushed himself back toward the attacker. Gathering his courage, he threw a punch of his own, straight and powerful, aimed directly at the man's chest. The Viltrumite caught Stephen's fist effortlessly, his palm absorbing the punch easily, though Stephen felt satisfaction at seeing the Viltrumite's eyes widen slightly with surprise. "You're stronger than you look," the man admitted, intrigued but unafraid. His grip tightened around Stephen's hand, twisting abruptly. Stephen hissed in pain, kicking out instinctively to gain distance. The kick connected, striking the Viltrumite squarely in the chest. The impact reverberated powerfully, strong enough to send him tumbling back a few meters. Stephen seized this opportunity, rushing forward again, aiming rapid-fire punches toward his enemy's face and torso. Each punch carried enough force to obliterate steel, each strike shaking the air with thunderous intensity. But experience won out. The Viltrumite deftly blocked most blows, countering expertly with precise, calculated strikes. A brutal uppercut snapped Steven's head backward violently, making his vision blur momentarily. Another strike caught him hard in the ribs, forcing a sharp cry from his lungs. Yet Steven persisted, adapting swiftly, slipping beneath a powerful swing aimed at his head and returning with a fierce jab that smashed squarely into his attacker's jaw, causing the Viltrumite's head to snap to the side. Steven felt a burst of exhilaration. He was improving rapidly mid-fight. But it wasn't enough. The Viltrumite recovered instantly, delivering a punch that felt like a meteor impacting Steven's chest. The force catapulted Steven backward, his body spinning violently through the sky. He gasped, disoriented, barely righting himself in time to avoid another lightning-fast strike. The Viltrumite's expression hardened, recognizing Steven's rising potential threat. "I underestimated you slightly, child," he admitted coldly, adjusting his stance. "But you're still too inexperienced to matter." Steven's muscles burned fiercely, but determination surged hotter. He attacked again, this time feinting left before swinging a vicious right hook toward the Viltrumite's temple. The blow connected solidly, the crack of impact sharp and satisfying. The attacker staggered briefly, surprise evident, but swiftly regained footing, eyes flashing dangerously. In an instant, Steven found himself under relentless assault. The Viltrumite's fists moved like a storm, delivering rapid, punishing strikes with unmatched precision. Steven blocked what he could, each impact echoing painfully through his bones, pushing his durability to its limits. Suddenly, a brutal punch caught Steven squarely in the chest, staggering him severely, sending him tumbling uncontrollably downward through the atmosphere. The world spun dizzily, air roaring past, his mind frantically searching for control. As he finally steadied himself, hovering shakily, Steven realized painfully, raw power alone wasn't enough. Experience, skill, precision, he was lacking them all. Yet despite the aching bruises forming beneath his skin, he refused to retreat. Steven clenched his fists tighter, readying himself once more. His eyes locked defiantly onto the approaching Viltrumite. He wasn't done yet. Steven braced himself, ready for another charge, but before he could even blink, the Viltrumite blurred forward at impossible speed. Steven had no chance to react. He barely registered the supersonic kick that slammed brutally into his side, breaking the sound barrier with an ear-splitting crack. He felt a horrific shockwave of pain explode through his torso. His body rocketed uncontrollably across the sky, his vision blurring from the sheer force. Steven desperately tried to steady himself, but the Viltrumite wasn't finished. Appearing behind Steven instantly, the attacker unleashed a relentless combo of punches, each blow striking with bone-crushing intensity. The fists were like battering rams, mercilessly pounding into Steven's back, ribs, and spine. Each strike felt capable of leveling a skyscraper. Steven's eyes widened, a pained scream escaping involuntarily as blood filled his mouth. He tasted the metallic tang, his breath forced from his lungs as agony consumed him. Before he could even think, another powerful hit launched him violently forward, a helpless ragdoll spiraling through the air. Then, from above, the Viltrumite descended, delivering an axe kick so devastatingly powerful that Steven was propelled downward toward the earth like a meteorite. Steven struggled desperately, fighting to regain some control, slowing himself even slightly. But his attacker was relentless. Diving swiftly, the Viltrumite struck him again with a flying punch, then another, and another, each blow magnifying Steven's downward momentum, pushing him past any limit he'd ever known. Finally, the city below rushed up terrifyingly fast. Steven managed one last desperate attempt, slowing his descent just enough to avoid catastrophic annihilation, but even still, he crashed with devastating force. His impact echoed like 10 missiles detonating simultaneously, sending shockwaves rippling through the city streets. Concrete shattered instantly, buildings shook violently, glass exploded, and dust engulfed everything within several blocks. When the dust settled, Steven lay motionless, half-buried amidst shattered concrete and twisted metal. Everything hurt. His senses spiraled chaotically, overwhelmed by pain and panic. Through blurred vision, he saw figures scrambling away, heard muffled screams and cries echoing from nearby buildings. Fathers and mothers searching for children, the injured wailing in agony, every voice blending into a chorus of suffering and fear. Hovering arrogantly above, the Viltrumite observed the carnage with cold disdain. Pathetic, He sneered mockingly, voice clear despite the chaos. Perhaps Earth requires our immediate attention if it harbors more anomalies like you. We might have to purge it sooner than planned. Steven's heart hammered painfully, his mind reeling. This wasn't supposed to happen. This destruction, this pain, he caused it. He watched helplessly as emergency sirens wailed, echoing desperately through the devastated streets. The Viltrumides' words echoed louder, heavier, each syllable dripping with arrogant contempt. Strange, the attacker mused, floating closer. Our reports never mentioned the planet producing something like you. Clearly, our intelligence has failed. The Empire will not be pleased. Steven's chest tightened painfully. The Empire, Viltrum, his father's legacy, his father's betrayal, this was all spiraling out of control. He couldn't let this happen. He couldn't allow Earth to suffer for his existence. His head pounded furiously as emotions surged, fear, anger, guilt, all overwhelming his senses. Suddenly, Steven's hearing intensified sharply, violently. Thousands of voices flooded his ears simultaneously, screams, shouts, cries, whispers, every heartbeat, every panicked breath within miles assaulted him at once. The cacophony was unbearable, making him clutch his head in agony, his vision splitting apart at the seams. His eyesight blurred and sharpened uncontrollably, abruptly revealing X-ray images of broken bodies, crushed bones, and the faint pulses of fading life. He saw through buildings, witnessed every moment of the unfolding tragedy in excruciating detail. It was too much, far, far too much. Steven remembered vividly how Superman had mastered his powers: focus, concentration, calm. Steven desperately tried to mimic that now, squeezing his eyes shut, desperately reaching for calm within chaos. But before he could grasp it, a merciless kick slammed directly into his gut, driving him backward through multiple buildings. Steel beams twisted, glass shattered, walls exploded in clouds of debris as Steven's body was propelled brutally through them all. Pain consumed him entirely, fury erupting from deep within. Something primal and powerful surged through his body, focusing intensely behind his eyes. His vision grew impossibly hot, burning like molten lava, pressure building rapidly, uncontrollably. And before anyone could react, before Steven himself could fully comprehend it, scarlet lasers erupted violently from his eyes, cutting effortlessly through buildings and slicing deeply into the ground below, leaving a glowing molten trail in their wake. The beams surged forward with explosive intensity, striking the stunned Viltrumite squarely in the abdomen, leaving behind a gaping, smoking wound. The attacker screamed sharply, clutching the injury briefly, before his shocked expression shifted into something entirely unexpected: excitement. A wicked smile spread across his face, eyes glinting with dark fascination. "Remarkable," he murmured, voice tinged with anticipation. "This planet grows more interesting by the second." Steven's vision cleared slightly, exhaustion crashing over him, his new senses still violently overwhelming. Yet, he forced himself upright, floating unsteadily amidst the ruin, eyes glowing fiercely, defiance burning clearly in his expression. Without hesitation, Steven unleashed another intense blast of heat vision, this time less controlled and less accurate. The Viltrumite barely dodged, twisting desperately in midair. Despite his swift movement, the laser sliced cleanly through his wrist, severing his hand entirely. He snarled, glaring intensely at Steven, both anger and grudging respect evident. "I'll remember you," the Viltrumite growled, clutching his severed wrist. "Next time, you won't be so fortunate." Without another word, he ascended swiftly, vanishing into the distant sky. Steven hovered painfully in place, breathing raggedly, barely able to process the chaos surrounding him. News helicopters swarmed overhead, capturing every moment of the destructive encounter. The adrenaline finally drained from Steven's battered body, and darkness closed swiftly around his vision. He felt himself slipping into unconsciousness, barely aware that the sunlight above him was already healing his wounds rapidly. Far away, in a secure facility, the GDA had watched every second, their screens flickering urgently with live footage and alarms blaring at the unprecedented display of power. Nolan, unaware of his son's ordeal, was busy battling threats elsewhere, far removed from this disaster. Meanwhile, at school, Mark stood frozen in shock, staring at his friend William's phone, which displayed shaky footage from a breaking news feed. William, oblivious, joked nervously, but Mark's heart hammered painfully. He instantly recognized his brother. No other 12-year-old possessed strength like that. Mark's breath hitched sharply, fear and urgency gripping him. Without another word, Mark shoved the phone back into William's hands, muttered a hurried goodbye, and sprinted toward the nearest secluded location. Moments later, fully suited, Mark rocketed into the sky, desperate to reach Steven before anyone else could. He had to get to him. Fast. Chapter 32. Under Watchful Eyes. The large screens lining the dimly lit control room of the Global Defense Agency flickered, casting their shifting glow onto a room filled with tense silence. Rows of analysts, each absorbed in their monitors, sifted rapidly through live footage, security feeds, and satellite imagery. Amidst this controlled chaos, Cecil Stedman stood motionless, his expression unreadable, gaze locked on the central screen displaying Steven's brutal clash with the unidentified Viltrumite. "Sir," an analyst finally ventured, her voice tightly controlled, "do we deploy Guardians for backup?" Cecil didn't immediately respond, his eye narrowed slightly as Steven's figure was punched mercilessly across the screen. A second analyst flinched involuntarily, hand trembling slightly as the boy's body crashed through buildings with catastrophic force. "Sir," the analyst repeated, voice edged with urgency. Cecil raised his hand gently, silencing further questions without breaking his gaze. "Not yet." A ripple of uncertainty passed through the room, unnoticed or ignored by Cecil. He studied Steven, watching the boy's body hurled again and again, witnessing the raw destructive power of the Viltrumite effortlessly unleashed upon the city. This wasn't just a fight. This was proof of their worst fears realized, an enemy they couldn't fight with their current resources. The GDA was founded precisely to handle extraordinary threats, yet this battle made it painfully clear that their capabilities were inadequate. Steven, just 12 years old, was demonstrating strength and resilience on a scale few heroes on Earth possessed. Yet even he was overwhelmed, tossed around like a toy by the intruder. Cecil's stomach churned quietly, hidden beneath layers of practiced detachment. He was no stranger to loss, no stranger to impossible decisions. This boy, Nolan Grayson's second son, was strong, perhaps stronger than any projection they had. But the Viltrumite was devastatingly powerful, a deadly reminder of why they monitored Nolan so closely, why Cecil maintained a distant but watchful presence in the Graysons' lives. "Monitor him closely," Cecil finally ordered, voice low yet firm. "But keep all our units back. No one engages." The analyst hesitated, biting her lip nervously. "Are you sure?" Cecil turned slightly, eye narrowed sharply. "We send them in now, we lose Guardians. That boy is already doing more damage control than anyone we have on staff." The analyst nodded mutely, reluctantly accepting Cecil's grim logic. Another brutal strike lit the screen, and Cecil's jaw tightened subtly. His pulse quickened briefly as Steven crashed toward the earth. He leaned forward, hands gripping the control panel. "Make sure we have a team ready. Medical staff on standby, containment units prepped." The command was quickly relayed, a wave of coordinated activity surging through the room. Still, Cecil never took his eyes from Steven's struggle. He knew the GDA was helpless here, intervention would mean nothing except adding to the body count. Suddenly, chaos erupted as Steven's eyes ignited, slicing through buildings with raw, uncontrollable energy. A hushed gasp traveled through the control room. Even Cecil raised his brows slightly, something rare flickering behind his usually impassive gaze. "What was that?" a nearby technician murmured, voice awed and terrified simultaneously. Cecil shook his head slowly, eyes narrowing further as the Viltrumite barely dodged a second blazing attack, losing a hand completely. "Something new," he muttered quietly, studying the boy intently. He'd watched Mark's development closely, Steven was something else entirely. When the Viltrumite retreated, the analysts collectively exhaled, relief palpable in the room. But Cecil's tension only increased. They hadn't won, they'd survived. And survival was only the beginning of their problems. "Lock onto his position immediately," Cecil instructed sharply. "I want full visual contact, find him now." Across town, Mark sat hunched over his school desk, the drone of his teacher's voice fading into background static. He stared blankly at his notes, mind drifting uneasily. Steven hadn't come home last night, and while their mother reassured him Steven was fine, Mark couldn't shake the tight knot of worry gnawing at his chest. He jolted from his thoughts when William urgently nudged him, pushing his phone beneath Mark's nose. "Dude, you need to see this, now." Confused, Mark glanced down, breath hitching violently as the footage played. It was shaky and distant, clearly captured from a news helicopter, but there was no mistaking the figure hurtling brutally through the air. No mistaking his little brother. Mark's breath caught painfully, his heart hammering. The image wobbled as Steven was slammed through skyscrapers, a scarlet streak of destruction trailing him. William stared wide-eyed, horrified yet oblivious to the boy's identity. "That's messed up, right?" William whispered, unable to tear his eyes away. "Can you imagine anyone our age being involved in that?" Mark swallowed thickly, jaw clenched. "No," he lied quietly, standing abruptly. "Look, I gotta go." William started, bewildered. "What, now? Class isn't over yet." Mark didn't wait for a response, already moving toward the exit, heart racing violently, thoughts whirling desperately. Steven was powerful, but he was just a kid. That footage made it clear he'd been badly hurt, possibly worse. Rushing outside, Mark glanced around hurriedly before soaring skyward, slipping into his suit as he ascended rapidly. Anxiety twisted sharply in his gut. He had to get to Steven first. The GDA would undoubtedly be moving in. If they found him first, who knew what they'd do? Their intentions toward his family had always felt murky, unpredictable. Mark sped through the sky, pushing himself harder than ever. His senses strained desperately, scanning for signs of destruction or the residual energy he knew his brother would emit. The city stretched chaotically below, damaged buildings and rising smoke guiding him toward Steven's last known position. His heart hammered painfully as he landed at ground zero, rubble and devastation everywhere. He shouted his brother's name, voice echoing off the shattered buildings. "Steven." Nothing. Frantic, he moved debris aside, searching desperately, panic surging through every nerve. His brother could be anywhere beneath this destruction, hurt, possibly dying. A sudden sound drew his attention sharply to the left, a weak groan from beneath collapsed concrete slabs. Mark's pulse surged, relief nearly knocking him to his knees. He rushed forward, strength surging as he tore through rubble effortlessly, tossing massive chunks aside with feverish urgency. "Steven, hang on," he shouted desperately, his heart pounding wildly. A flash of dark hair, pale skin, Mark exhaled sharply, grabbing hold and carefully pulling the figure free. "I got you, you're gonna be alright, just hold on." He froze abruptly, staring down in confusion. Instead of Steven's familiar face, a dazed civilian boy, bloodied and barely conscious, stared weakly back at him, blinking slowly in confusion. Mark's throat tightened painfully, shock rippling through him. This wasn't Steven. Fear returned full force, chilling him to the bone. Steven was still missing. Mark gently lowered the injured boy onto a safe patch of ground, fighting to steady his trembling hands. "Hang tight," he whispered shakily, barely registering the distant wail of emergency vehicles approaching. The boy's confused eyes stared up at him, searching for answers Mark didn't have. "Paramedics are coming," Mark reassured softly. "You'll be okay." He straightened, scanning desperately across the ruined landscape, heart hammering painfully against his ribs. Buildings lay shattered, concrete split like broken bones, twisted metal and shattered glass glinting ominously beneath the thick haze of smoke and dust. "Steven," he yelled again, voice raw with desperation. The echo bounced back at him, hollow and mocking, amplified by the sheer emptiness of destruction. Nothing. His pulse spiked again, mind racing wildly. He had to keep moving. Steven had to be somewhere. Mark surged into the sky, hovering high above the chaos, desperately scanning the devastation for signs of life, movement, anything. He strained every sense, vision sharpening, gaze sweeping carefully over every ruin, every shadowed alley, and overturned vehicle. Below, the emergency crews began to flood the area, a mass of flashing lights, blaring sirens, and urgent voices. It only deepened his fear. If the authorities reached Steven first, especially if it was the GDA, his stomach churned at the thought. "Come on, Steven," Mark whispered harshly, anxiety clawing violently at his chest. "Where are you?" Far away, yet simultaneously close, Cecil stood in the center of the control room, watching the same scene unfold through an array of camera feeds. The meticulous choreography of the GDA's response had already begun. Specialized drones hovered silently through the skies, tracking Mark's every frantic movement with cool precision. Cecil's face remained unreadable, though tension tightened the muscles around his remaining eye. "Where is the boy?" he asked, voice dangerously quiet. "Coordinates locked, sir," one technician replied crisply, adjusting his headset. "Near ground zero, sector 4. Thermal imaging confirms heavy injuries, but he's stabilizing rapidly." Cecil nodded slowly, absorbing this information. Rapid healing, accelerated recovery, the boy's physiology surpassed their expectations significantly. A quiet unease stirred within him. Steven wasn't just Nolan Grayson's child, he was something different, potentially more dangerous. But dangerous or not, he was invaluable. Cecil knew Steven's presence might offer a chance, however slight, to protect Earth from the inevitable confrontation with Viltrum. If Steven could be studied, understood, perhaps even guided. His attention snapped back sharply as Mark tore through another collapsed building on the screen, the young hero's frustration palpable even through grainy imagery. Mark would find him eventually, and that wasn't ideal. The GDA needed Steven first. Send recovery now, Cecil ordered firmly. Make sure we get him before Invincible does. Agents swiftly moved to execute his command, coordination flawless. Cecil observed silently, his mind calculating scenarios with practiced detachment. Mark's emotional turmoil would make him unpredictable. Cecil couldn't afford an emotional young hero complicating the operation, not when Earth's future might hinge on this very moment. Mark's search grew frantic, desperation bleeding into every movement. His breathing was erratic, heart pounding violently as hope dwindled rapidly. Then he felt something, an inexplicable tug, like instinct, pulling him toward a partially collapsed parking structure. He raced toward it, heart leaping. Landing heavily, he tore through the wreckage without hesitation, metal screeching in protest beneath his strength. There, beneath cracked asphalt and debris, was a faint outline, small and motionless. Mark's breath hitched sharply. Steven, his voice cracked, barely audible even to himself, as he tore desperately through rubble, each piece heavier and more oppressive than the last. Finally, a dark-haired figure came into clearer view beneath a broken concrete slab. Relief flooded Mark, nearly overwhelming him. He pulled debris away quickly, carefully uncovering the figure beneath, heart hammering violently in his chest. "It's okay," he murmured shakily, gently lifting the unconscious figure. "I'm here now, you're safe." He stopped abruptly, eyes widening in disbelief and mounting dread. It was a teenage girl, wearing a torn, dust-covered hoodie, her face bruised but still breathing steadily, clearly not Steven. Mark's heart plummeted, panic surging again like a tidal wave. He set her down gently, eyes wild, heart shattering. How many more mistakes would he make before it was too late? As he stood helplessly, fists clenched in frustration, his communicator crackled urgently. "Mark." Debbie's voice was frantic, breaking with barely controlled panic. "Did you find him? Did you find your brother?" Mark swallowed hard, choking on his response. "No, not yet. I thought I did, but..." She exhaled shakily, clearly fighting tears. "Please, keep looking. Bring him home." Mark shut his eyes briefly, her desperation cutting through him. "I will, Mom," he promised, voice thick with raw determination. "I swear." Ending the call, Mark hovered briefly, looking down at the chaotic streets below. He drew a steadying breath, fighting despair. Steven was strong. He had to believe that, had to trust that his brother could endure long enough for him to reach him. "I'll find you," he whispered fiercely, determination stealing his voice once more. "Just hold on." Across the devastated sector, hidden from Mark's frantic search, unmarked vehicles quietly maneuvered, through the chaos, swiftly converging upon a specific location. Cecil's recovery team moved with quiet efficiency, blending seamlessly amidst emergency responders, indistinguishable from any other first responder rushing toward the injured. Inside the control room, Cecil watched intently. A technician turned, eyes brightening behind her headset. "Sir, extraction team is in position." Cecil gave a slight nod, tension easing slightly. "Proceed." The agents worked quickly, their movements precise, practiced. Within seconds, the unconscious figure was carefully loaded onto a stretcher and placed discreetly into the rear of an unmarked transport, doors sealing soundlessly behind them. "Extraction successful," the technician reported crisply. Cecil exhaled slowly, gaze unwavering from the monitors. "Good. Keep him stable. Get him back here immediately." As the vehicles discreetly departed, blending seamlessly into traffic, Cecil allowed himself a brief moment of relief. They had the boy. The situation was still salvageable. But even Cecil felt the quiet, creeping shadow of unease as he considered their actions. Steven's capabilities, his parentage, everything about him was a potential threat or an irreplaceable asset. Cecil knew that he walked a precarious line here. One wrong step and Earth might lose its greatest potential defender, or gain its greatest enemy. Either way, he thought grimly, watching Mark frantically searching streets away, everything had just become infinitely more complicated. Chapter 33, Shifting Dynamics. Inside the pristine, sterile medical wing of the Global Defense Agency, Stephen lay motionless on an advanced medical bed, surrounded by softly humming machinery and discreet monitoring devices. His chest rose and fell rhythmically, visibly healing even as the GDA doctors and scientists moved swiftly around him. Cecil Stedman stood to one side, arms crossed, watching silently as medical staff attempted to take a blood sample. The needle, gleaming sharply under the stark white lights, pressed against Stephen's skin, dimpled slightly, then bent and snapped uselessly. Cecil raised an eyebrow. "Try again," he instructed quietly, curiosity masking his underlying concern. The attending physician exchanged a worried glance with the nurse before picking up another needle, this one specialized, reinforced with advanced alloys typically reserved for enhanced individuals. Yet again, the needle failed spectacularly, bending completely without even breaking the skin. "It's no use, sir," the physician admitted nervously, wiping sweat from his brow. "His skin, it's far too dense. Our best equipment isn't enough to pierce it." Cecil sighed slightly, eye narrowing thoughtfully. "Is there no other way?" Another technician stepped forward hesitantly. "We may be able to collect traces from superficial wounds, maybe from around his mouth or lips. It's not ideal, but..." Cecil gave a quick nod. "Proceed." The team moved rapidly, meticulously swabbing Stephen's lips and the small injuries still healing. A minuscule amount of blood was carefully extracted, sealed within a vial as if it were precious gold. Hours later, Cecil observed quietly from behind reinforced glass as scientists struggled to analyze the sample. Frustration rippled through the room, tension palpable. A senior geneticist approached Cecil, visibly weary. "We have a problem." Cecil's brow furrowed slightly. "Explain." The geneticist hesitated, then continued carefully. "This DNA, it's beyond our understanding. Even with the most advanced sequencing methods at our disposal, we're barely scratching the surface. Whatever he is, it's far beyond standard human capabilities. Hell, sir, this DNA makes cloning seem trivial by comparison." Cecil's eye narrowed sharply. "Are you saying we can't replicate it?" "Not effectively. Even if we attempt cloning, which itself would take years, given the scarcity of viable samples, any resulting being would be unpredictable. A genetic wild card, potentially dangerous. At best, a superhuman capable of challenging a few conventional threats. At worst." The geneticist trailed off, expression grim. "Say it," Cecil demanded quietly. "At worst," the scientist admitted slowly, "it could turn into another uncontrollable catastrophe. We're simply not equipped to predict or control the behavioral traits something like this might exhibit." Cecil considered this quietly, the weight of responsibility pressing heavily upon him. He knew he'd gambled, bringing Stephen here. This was beyond his calculated predictions. He'd expected challenges, certainly, but this. Stephen's DNA wasn't merely extraordinary, it defied scientific comprehension. "Secure the sample," Cecil finally instructed. "Continue analysis discreetly. Keep me informed. No one else gets access without my authorization." "Yes, sir," the geneticist responded, visibly relieved as Cecil turned and departed swiftly, leaving the laboratory behind. Elsewhere, amid the debris-strewn ruins of downtown, Mark sagged against a partially collapsed wall, exhaustion heavy in every muscle. He'd searched relentlessly, desperately, until his strength finally gave out. Guilt gnawed at him relentlessly. He'd promised his mother he'd find Stephen, but now... A soft beep interrupted his spiraling thoughts, startling him. Looking down, Mark realized it was the discreet tracker his mother had embedded in their communicators, a hidden function she'd casually mentioned, part of her habit of always ensuring she knew her family's whereabouts. Mark let out a shaky breath, a fleeting smile touching his lips. Of course, she would know. Debbie always knew. Seconds later, the air shifted subtly. Mark raised his head, relief washing over him as Nolan, his father, descended swiftly from the sky, landing with effortless grace. The lines of concern etched deeply into Nolan's face told Mark all he needed to know. Debbie had seen, heard, or hacked into something significant enough to urgently alert Nolan. "Dad," Mark gasped, voice strained and weary. "Stephen, he's missing. I searched everywhere, I can't find him." Nolan's expression hardened slightly, jaw tightening as he scanned the destruction around them. He placed a reassuring hand on Mark's shoulder, voice low and steady. "I know. Your mother alerted me as soon as the news broke. She picked up transmissions the GDA thought were secure. We'll find Stephen. Follow me." Mark nodded slowly, drawing strength from his father's calm resolve. Nolan gently helped Mark to his feet, preparing to lift off again when a sharp beep interrupted them. Nolan's communicator buzzed insistently, and he quickly activated it, expression instantly softening upon hearing the familiar voice on the other end. Nolan Grayson. Debbie's voice trembled slightly yet held fierce determination. You're not leaving me behind. I'm coming with you. Nolan hesitated only briefly, a mixture of admiration and concern flickering across his face. Debbie had always been resourceful, sharp, more capable than even he sometimes gave her credit for. He knew better than to argue. Instead, he responded quietly but firmly, "All right, we'll pick you up now." Ending the call, Nolan looked firmly at Mark. "Your mother's right. This concerns all of us. Let's go get her." With renewed purpose and unity, father and son soared skyward, leaving behind the devastation below, each silently resolved to reclaim Steven, whatever it took. Chapter 34, Family First. The house was quiet when Nolan landed softly in their backyard, gently setting Mark down beside him. Mark swayed slightly, exhaustion etched deeply into his features, his body feeling heavier now that the adrenaline was fading. Nolan steadied him with one strong hand, giving him a brief but firm look of concern. "Mark," Nolan said steadily, squeezing his shoulder with controlled strength, "take a breath. You won't help Steven if you collapse." Mark inhaled sharply, frustration clear on his face. "We don't have time for this. Steven can handle more than you think," Nolan interrupted, his voice confident, authoritative. "But we'll get him back. Now." The patio door slid open abruptly, Debbie stepping out briskly, tablet held firmly in hand. Her eyes were sharp, expression tightly composed despite the raw edge of anxiety beneath. Nolan turned to her immediately, his posture straightening slightly. "You tracked him." Nolan's voice was clear, firm, showing no trace of uncertainty. Debbie nodded quickly, lifting the tablet to show lines of rapidly scrolling data and several blinking coordinates. "They didn't exactly hide it. Cecil wants us to know. He's practically begging you to come pick him up." Nolan scowled slightly, irritation briefly darkening his eyes. "He's trying to prove a point." Debbie met Nolan's gaze directly, her voice sharp and unflinching. "Then make sure he knows exactly how dangerous a game he's playing. Nobody touches our son." Mark looked between his parents, slightly unsettled by the cold fury hidden beneath their careful control. It was rare to see his mother like this, fierce and unwavering, yet still composed enough to keep Nolan's anger from spiraling out of control. "Let's go," Nolan said bluntly, making no effort to mask his impatience. "We've wasted enough time already." Debbie stepped forward immediately, already slipping on her jacket, determination etched clearly into every movement. Nolan hesitated only a split second, his tone softer yet still firm. "Debbie, maybe you should." "Don't," she interrupted instantly, cutting him off before the thought could fully form. "If you think I'm staying here waiting helplessly, you don't know me at all. I'm going." Nolan regarded her quietly, a brief flash of pride mixing with the worry that tightened his jaw. He knew better than to argue now. "All right, stay close to Mark." Mark straightened instantly at his father's words, fatigue momentarily replaced by resolve. "We're ready." Nolan nodded once, sharply, before stepping forward and gently scooping Debbie into his arms. She wrapped one arm securely around his neck, holding tightly to her tablet with the other. Mark rose steadily from the ground beside them, his fists clenched, ready and waiting. Without another word, Nolan shot upward, Mark close behind, soaring swiftly into the darkened sky toward the brightly lit structure of GDA headquarters looming ominously in the distance. They landed moments later at the front entrance, Nolan setting Debbie down with practiced ease. He strode purposefully toward the reinforced doors, not bothering to wait for them to slide open, nearly tearing them from their hinges as he forced his way inside. Mark followed closely behind, heart hammering, adrenaline flaring again as dozens of armed security guards froze, unsure of how to react. Debbie stepped calmly inside after them, her posture resolute, eyes scanning the faces around her with icy determination. "I believe Cecil is expecting us," Nolan said, voice deceptively calm, but the underlying threat clear to everyone present. "Take us to our son. Now." One guard hesitated, finger tightening slightly on his weapon, until a sharp, commanding voice echoed through the lobby's intercom system. "Stand down," Cecil's familiar voice ordered immediately. "Bring them straight to me." Nolan's expression hardened, his fists clenched tightly as he strode forward, Debbie and Mark following closely behind. They moved swiftly through corridors and elevators, each step carrying them deeper into the GDA's sprawling facility, closer to Steven. And closer to answers. Nolan walked through the GDA corridors with purposeful strides, his every movement radiating barely restrained fury. Mark walked close beside Debbie, senses on edge, aware of the tense glances the staff gave them. Cecil awaited them at the entrance of the main control room, his stance deceptively casual. "Nolan," Cecil began calmly, with a neutral tone that gave nothing away. "Glad you could finally join us." Nolan closed the gap quickly, his voice dangerously low. "I warned you, Cecil. Stay away from my family." Cecil's expression remained unreadable, unfazed. "Your son's outburst leveled half a city block. People are injured, Nolan, some dead. What did you expect me to do, just sit by and watch?" "I expected you to respect boundaries," Nolan growled, fists clenching tightly at his sides. Steven was defending himself against an alien. "I'm aware," Cecil answered dryly. "That only makes him more valuable, and dangerous. Imagine if he'd lost control in a crowded area. You know better than anyone the threat we're facing." "I had no choice." "Don't talk to me about choices," Nolan shot back, voice edged with menace. "You had plenty. You chose to cross a line." Cecil shook his head slightly, holding Nolan's intense gaze without flinching. "Crossing lines is what keeps this planet safe. You should know that by now." Debbie stepped forward suddenly, her voice sharp, breaking through their tense exchange. "Enough. Where is our son, Cecil?" Cecil's gaze shifted briefly, softening just slightly as he regarded Debbie. "He's safe. We've been treating him since we found him. He's stable, healing rapidly. Faster than we anticipated." Mark exhaled audibly in relief, tension briefly easing in his shoulders, but Nolan's posture remained rigid, hostile. "Take us to him, now." "Of course," Cecil responded, waving a dismissive hand. "Right this way." They followed Cecil in tense silence through another secured corridor, the rhythmic hum of machinery filling the oppressive quiet. As they walked, Cecil glanced sideways at Nolan, speaking again, his tone deliberately mild yet piercingly accurate. "You know, Nolan, you're becoming more emotional lately," Cecil remarked. "That could become a liability, especially for someone with your responsibilities." Nolan halted abruptly, eyes flaring dangerously as he turned to face Cecil. "What did you just say?" Cecil paused, not intimidated but measured, carefully choosing his words. "You heard me. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. Steven is powerful, potentially even more powerful than you. You're scared, and it's making you reckless." Nolan opened his mouth to respond but stopped short. Cecil's words cut deeply, forcing him into sudden silence. His anger, previously boiling over, suddenly chilled. He felt exposed, vulnerable. Cecil was right. Nolan was losing control, acting irrationally, exactly as Cecil had suggested. Debbie placed a steadying hand on Nolan's arm, gently but firmly pulling him back to the present. Her voice softened, breaking the silence. "Let's just get Steven, Nolan. He's waiting for us." Nolan exhaled slowly, regaining control over himself. Cecil watched, his expression subtly triumphant but still carefully neutral. Mark shifted uncomfortably, sensing the silent power struggle unfolding between his father and Cecil. Without another word, Cecil resumed walking, leading them swiftly toward a brightly lit medical wing. The facility was strikingly advanced, meticulously clean, and appeared more like something out of a distant future rather than an underground government base. Sleek, white and silver walls shimmered softly, reflecting and diffusing the natural sunlight streaming gracefully through large, angled glass panels embedded seamlessly into the high ceiling. The sunlight passed through advanced crystalline filters, transforming harsh rays into gentle, restorative waves of warmth. Tiny holographic interfaces floated unobtrusively beside each patient bed, displaying vital signs and medical data in real time with elegant precision. The floors themselves seemed softly illuminated from beneath, gently glowing to match the ambient light filtering through the ceiling, lending the room a comforting, serene atmosphere. As they entered the treatment room, Mark immediately rushed forward. Steven lay quietly on a sleek, slightly elevated medical bed, breathing steadily, the refined sunlight washing gently across his skin, visibly accelerating his healing. A faint, golden glow seemed to dance delicately along his arms and face, each ray meticulously calibrated to nourish and restore. Debbie approached carefully, relief clear on her face as she gently brushed Steven's hair away from his forehead. Nolan remained by the doorway, silently reflecting on Cecil's words. He watched his family quietly, realizing how dangerously close he'd come to losing control, something that could endanger them all. Cecil had seen it. Nolan hated to admit it, but the older man was right. His family needed protection, not blind fury. Your son will be fine, Cecil said quietly, watching Nolan closely. We've done everything we can. Nolan nodded curtly, his anger fading slightly. We're taking him home. Cecil offered a slight shrug. I expected nothing less. As Nolan approached Stephen's bedside, placing a gentle hand on his youngest son's shoulder, he promised himself silently that he would never allow emotion to cloud his judgment again. Stephen stirred slightly beneath his touch, breathing steady and strong. Cecil watched them quietly from the door, expression unreadable but thoughtful. Finally, with a slight nod, he turned away, disappearing into the corridor once more. For now, Stephen was safe, their family reunited. But Nolan knew, deep down, that things were only beginning to unravel. The tension with Cecil and the GDA had only grown more complicated, more dangerous. But at least, for tonight, the Graysons were whole again. Chapter 35, Aftermath. Stephen jolted awake, his entire body tensed, every muscle coiled and ready to fight. He hovered inches above his bed, hands clenched into tight fists, eyes burning hotly, scarlet energy glowing fiercely beneath closed lids, ready to unleash devastation. His breath came in sharp, ragged gasps, his mind still trapped in the chaos of battle, his heart hammering violently in his chest. Stephen, a voice cut through the haze, calm, strong, and familiar. Stephen froze instantly, the gentle command striking deeper than any physical blow. Slowly, the adrenaline began to recede, leaving him shaking slightly as he hovered in place, listening carefully. It's all right, Nolan said, his tone firm but soothing, clearly audible from somewhere near the doorway. You're safe, it's over. Stephen, sweetheart, came Debbie's softer voice, filled with quiet reassurance. You're home now, it's okay. Stephen exhaled a shuddering breath, heart still pounding erratically. Carefully, deliberately, he allowed himself to lower back onto the mattress, the soft fabric comforting beneath his tense frame. Still, he refused to open his eyes. The sensation of the heat gathering behind them, the memory of buildings collapsing beneath those blazing beams, it was too vivid, too raw. How? He managed to croak out, his throat dry and aching. You've been out for almost 2 days, Debbie explained gently, her voice carefully steady despite the faint quiver of worry beneath. We brought you home yesterday. You just needed rest. Stephen's fist slowly unclenched, trembling fingers gripping the bed sheets tightly. He was home, safe. He repeated it silently to himself, desperately trying to steady his chaotic thoughts. Home meant safety, stability, at least it used to. Then, suddenly and without warning, everything changed. 1,000 voices flooded his mind at once, fragmented conversations, shouting, whispers, screams, laughter, all pouring into his consciousness like an unstoppable tidal wave. He gasped sharply, pressing his palms against his ears in a futile attempt to block out the noise. His parents instantly moved closer, sensing the sudden distress radiating from him. Stephen, what is it? Debbie's voice was tight with urgency, a hand gently resting on his shoulder. Stephen shook his head frantically, gritting his teeth. Too loud, he managed to choke out, desperation clear in his strained voice. I hear everything. He could hear the chaos of a bustling street hundreds of miles away, conversations between families he'd never met, even whispers exchanged behind closed doors, none of it under his control. Each sound overwhelmed him, drowning out everything else, burying him beneath an endless, maddening cacophony. Panic surged again, sharp and hot, and Stephen felt the dangerous energy flaring behind his eyes once more. His breathing quickened sharply, realizing with a sickening dread that if he opened his eyes, even for a second, he could unleash that destructive heat again, obliterating everything around him. Keep your eyes closed, Nolan instructed urgently, clearly understanding the imminent threat. Breathe, Stephen, focus on my voice, block everything else out. I can't, Stephen gasped desperately, tears of pain and frustration streaming from beneath tightly shut lids. It's too much, I don't know how. Yes, you can, Debbie reassured firmly, her grip tightening reassuringly on his shoulder. Listen only to us, ignore everything else. Stephen took another shuddering breath, desperately clinging to his parents' voices, using them as an anchor amidst the chaos. His chest tightened painfully, heart racing. He forced himself to concentrate, gradually isolating Nolan's steady, commanding voice and Debbie's soothing reassurances from the noise. The multitude of voices slowly receded, still present but muted now, manageable. That's it, Nolan praised softly, noticing the slight relaxation in Steven's tense muscles. Just breathe, son, you're doing it. Steven exhaled slowly, feeling exhaustion seep deeply into his bones as the voices faded into a manageable background hum. He still didn't dare open his eyes, uncertain if the destructive power would surge forth again. He felt drained, vulnerable, but at least now, with his parents by his side, he was no longer alone in the struggle. What happened to me? Steven whispered weakly, his voice trembling with lingering fear. Why can't I control this? Nolan paused, the silence stretching briefly as he considered his answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, controlled, but beneath it lay an unmistakable gravity. Your powers are developing, Steven, Nolan explained carefully. They're stronger than we anticipated, stronger than you were ready for. But you will learn control. I promise. Debbie gently brushed Steven's hair away from his face again, her touch comforting and familiar. We're here for you. We'll get through this, together. Steven lay there, quietly absorbing his parents' words, heart slowly steadying as he clung to the warmth of their presence. The chaos within him had quieted slightly, manageable for now, but beneath his exhausted relief lingered a quiet fear, a persistent question. Would he ever truly master these powers, or would he forever be at their mercy? Steven lay quietly for several long minutes, the room falling into a cautious silence. His breathing gradually steadied, heart rate easing back to normal. Even though he didn't open his eyes, he could sense his parents' presence, steady, reassuring, unwavering. Debbie gently squeezed his shoulder again, her voice calm but still layered with concern. Steven, sweetheart, how do you feel now? Steven hesitated, carefully taking stock. The overwhelming storm of voices had receded into the background, a distant, manageable hum. They still pressed faintly at the edges of his awareness, but for now, they were tolerable. Better, he whispered cautiously, voice still rough and uncertain. Still loud, but better. Debbie sighed softly, audibly relieved. Her fingers brushed gently through his hair, comforting in a familiar way only she could be. Nolan's steady voice broke the silence next, calm but characteristically direct. Good. Keep your eyes closed until you're ready. Take your time. Steven swallowed hard, nodding slightly. The vivid memory of buildings collapsing, the heat of his own destructive eyes, it was far too fresh, too raw. He wasn't prepared to risk it again. He hesitated, throat tight, and quietly asked, Dad, what exactly happened after? Nolan paused a moment, clearly considering his words carefully. When he finally spoke, his tone was firm, yet Steven sensed the lingering undercurrent of tension. You fought hard, Steven. Harder than anyone your age should have too. You drove off the attacker, but it cost you. You did everything you could. Steven drew in a shaky breath, his chest tightening. Did anyone else? His voice trailed off weakly, guilt heavy in each word. Before Nolan could respond, Debbie swiftly intervened, her voice gentle but resolute. No, honey, listen to me. What happened isn't your fault. None of this was your responsibility. Steven felt the sting of tears behind his eyelids, choking back a quiet sob. But people got hurt because of me. No, Nolan corrected firmly, his voice unwavering, edged with intensity. They got hurt because someone else attacked. You fought to protect as many as you possibly could, and succeeded. Don't ever blame yourself for actions beyond your control. Steven absorbed his father's words silently, startled by the genuine, quiet pride that underscored Nolan's rare praise. He rarely spoke so openly or so warmly, and Steven found unexpected solace in it. Quiet footsteps padded hesitantly across the floor, and Steven recognized Mark's cautious approach. Mark paused briefly beside their parents before gently speaking, uncertainty clear in his voice. Is he awake? He is, Mark, Debbie answered softly, encouraging him forward. Mark moved closer, his voice immediately lighter, cautiously playful even in the tense moment. Jesus, Steve, you scared the absolute crap out of us. Next time you wanna blow up half the city, can you maybe give me a heads up? Despite everything, Steven couldn't stop the faint smile tugging at his lips, comforted by Mark's familiar teasing. I'll try, he whispered hoarsely. No promises. Mark exhaled heavily, clearly relieved beneath his playful front. Look, I know it probably doesn't help much, but I get it, sort of. The first time I threw a punch with my powers, I nearly put a hole through a wall. Dad looked like he was gonna ground me until I was 30. Steven snorted softly, almost involuntarily, relaxing slightly at Mark's rare vulnerability. Did he? Mark laughed quietly, shaking his head. Nah, Mom talked him down. Point is, I felt like crap, like maybe I wasn't cut out for it. I get that feeling. It sucks. Steven swallowed again, his voice barely above a whisper, hesitant. He knew the underlying meaning behind Mark's words. How did you get past it? Mark hesitated for a heartbeat, clearly uncomfortable sharing deeper emotions, but pushed through regardless. I just kept going, kept trying. Eventually, things got easier. I still mess up, sometimes badly, but I learned to accept it as part of me. That's kind of all you can do. The quiet sincerity in Mark's voice resonated deeply. Steven knew how hard it was for Mark to admit any vulnerability, especially to him. He appreciated the honesty more than he could properly express. Nolan cleared his throat softly, giving the boys space as he stepped quietly away, dialing his communicator to contact Cecil, voice dropping low, barely audible. Steven felt a small pang of relief at his father's tact, grateful for the unexpected privacy. Debbie remained silently by Steven's side, a comforting presence. Steven carefully reached out his hand again, feeling his mother's gentle fingers close reassuringly around his. He took a deep, shaky breath, summoning courage. Mark, can you help me with something? Mark straightened slightly, immediately attentive, protective. Yeah, of course, anything. Steven hesitated only a second longer, nerves evident in his voice. I want to try opening my eyes. But, slowly, I need someone to help me stop if I lose control. Mark squeezed his shoulder gently, voice steady with determination and quiet pride. I got you, little bro. You're not in this alone. Taking another careful breath, Steven focused intently, feeling the faint warmth behind his eyes flicker uncertainly. Slowly, inch by painstaking inch, he began to cautiously open his eyes. Cecil, I know you can hear me, Nolan spoke out loud, his communicator in his pocket, while in his other hand lies a robotic eye. Nolan looked directly into the robotic eye, calm and collected, his voice low, posture confident. After a small pause he spoke, you have 5 seconds. Chapter 36, Return to Normal. Cecil, I know you can hear me. Nolan's voice was calm, steady, but carried the unmistakable weight of a threat. He stood in the open air, the breeze barely rustling his clothes. One hand rested at his side, holding a small communicator, while the other raised a robotic eye, its lens blinking with life. Nolan stared into it, unfazed. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, but every line of his body radiated intent. There was no doubt in his tone. Just finality. You have 5 seconds. Then, silence. Cecil stiffened on the other end, eyes narrowing at the live feed just before it cut to black. No panic, no theatrics, just a sharp order to the technicians around him. Evacuate, everyone. He didn't say why, he didn't have to. The base in Utah was built to withstand anything human. But Nolan Grayson was not human. Above the desert, he hovered silently, eyes scanning the canyons below. The countdown was over. He gave them exactly 1 minute. No more. Then he dropped. The air cracked with a sonic boom as he fell from the sky like a meteor, smashing into the reinforced entrance with a thunderous impact that registered on seismographs across 3 states. The earth quaked, concrete buckled, steel screamed. And then it all gave way. He punched through the first bulkhead like it was rice paper, sending twisted metal cartwheeling down the hall. Soldiers rushed forward, guns raised, tranquilizers, shock rounds, energy weapons. They screamed warnings, fired. Nolan was already on them. He moved like a phantom, faster than thought, fists turning bone and armor into paste. One punch caved in the corridor wall and 3 men with it. Another strike sent a reinforced blast door careening down the hall like a battering ram, crushing everything in its path. No hesitation, no mercy. Alarms wailed. Automatic lockdown initiated. Gas lines ruptured as containment fields shorted out. Flames bloomed, but Nolan simply walked through the inferno, untouched. There were no clever powers. Just brute, unstoppable force. He tore the mainframe out of the wall, hurling it through the ceiling. He drove his shoulder into a structural pillar, collapsing an entire support wing behind him. Hallways crumbled. A wave of smoke and debris swallowed fleeing agents. Nolan didn't slow. He struck pressure points in the architecture that only he, with his battlefield precision, would recognize. Load-bearing walls, core supports. The spine of the base cracked under the weight of his intent. Concrete ruptured like old bone. By the time he reached the command sector, the ceiling was collapsing behind him. Flames chased his shadow. The base was screaming. He didn't look back. Outside, the first tremors hit. The ground split wide as the entire compound began to sink into itself, collapsing like a dying lung. From a safe distance, helicopters lifted away. Cecil watched from a secure uplink, the screen flickering with seismic data, camera feeds, and then, static. Nothing remained. No wreckage, no survivors, just a smoldering crater where a multi-billion-dollar facility used to be. And high above it, in the silence that followed, Nolan hovered alone, arms folded, face unreadable. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply turned and flew away. The house was still standing, but something beneath its walls had changed. At the breakfast table, Mark pushed scrambled eggs around his plate, jaw tense. Nolan sat at the head, silently scrolling through news on his phone like he hadn't erased a military compound days ago. Debbie, ever composed, moved between the stove and counter, keeping her expression neutral, but her hands lingered too long on the coffee pot, her glances too frequent. Stephen sat nearby, quiet, watching everyone play their parts. Nothing had been said about what happened in Utah. Not the crater, not the screams, not the silence that followed. But Stephen had no idea that a base in Utah was settled in the air like dust after an explosion. "What's the plan today?" Mark asked, eyes still locked on his food. "Training," Nolan said, not looking up. "You're not where you need to be." Mark gave a sharp exhale through his nose. "Right." That was all. No argument, just a quiet acceptance wrapped in frustration. They flew miles beyond the city, into the open wilderness, somewhere no one could hear them, or get hurt if things went wrong. Stephen touched down on a rocky plateau, the wind skimming across the empty landscape. Nolan stood a few yards ahead, arms folded, waiting. Mark landed behind him, already stretching out his shoulders, jaw clenched tight. "Stephen," Nolan said, without turning, "watch for now. See how it's done." Stephen didn't respond, just gave a small nod. It wasn't an order, just a simple instruction. It was the first time Nolan had included him in something like this, so he had to behave and pay close attention, as he is expected to understand. Then Nolan moved. No warm-up, no warning, just impact. Mark braced as his father rushed him. Their fists collided midair with a crack that echoed across the cliffs. Nolan didn't ease in, he pressed hard, chaining attacks that forced Mark into a scramble. There was no wasted movement, no hesitation. Just clean, punishing precision. Mark caught a blow to the ribs and tumbled across the plateau. He rolled to his feet with a grunt, face tight with effort. "Again," Nolan said. Mark launched back in, faster now, every movement sharper, more focused. He'd gotten stronger, that much was clear, but Nolan was still a wall. Every strike was met, every dodge was answered, nothing Mark did seemed to catch him off guard. Stephen watched from the edge, he could barely look, but with arms crossed he forced himself to see the struggles his brother goes through every day. This wasn't just about improving. Nolan was showing Mark the gap between what he was and what he needed to become. And Mark was trying, really trying. Every hit he took, he stood back up. Every failed move, he pushed harder. He wasn't getting praise, he wasn't getting reassured, but he didn't stop. They trained for hours. Breaks were short and silent. Nolan only spoke when he needed to correct form, redirect an angle, adjust pressure. Mark's shirt clung to his back, his breathing shallow and ragged. But his eyes stayed locked on Nolan, even when his body begged him to rest. Stephen could see what this was. Nolan wasn't punishing Mark, he was preparing him for something worse. And he wasn't using words to explain it, just pressure. Eventually, Nolan turned toward Stephen. "Your turn." Stephen stepped forward without a word, his stomach tightening. He'd never trained like this. Not with Nolan, not under scrutiny like this. But there was no hesitation. He knew this moment was coming. And Nolan didn't slow things down for him. The hits were just as fast. The force behind them real. But Nolan's eyes studied him differently, measured, even curious. Stephen held his ground longer than Mark had. Dodged more, landed a few strikes of his own. But he could feel it. Nolan was watching for something. Not just ability, not just power. Intent to kill. Later that night, after showers and dinner, the house fell quiet again. Mark was passed out on the couch, an arm hanging off the side, one leg still twitching from overworked nerves. Debbie had retreated early, her door shut like always. Nolan sat in the dark of the living room, staring through the window, face blank. Steven stood alone on the roof, the night sky open and still above him. He hovered a few feet into the air, letting the breeze curl under his arms. He was taking his time to do something quieter, an attempt to breathe. He thought about Mark, about how hard he pushed today, how he didn't ask for praise, how he didn't complain, which was different from his usual behavior. Normally when he achieves something he wants to be recognized for it, but during training, he was like a different person. Steven could feel the weight on Mark's shoulders. Steven had held his own against Nolan. That should have meant something. But it didn't feel like a win. The world had changed again. But no one was talking about it. Not Debbie, not Nolan, not Mark. They carried on like nothing had happened. Like there wasn't probably thousands dead from his clash with the Viltrumite in the city, like there weren't many buried and crushed beneath miles of rock and ash. Steven hadn't seen the aftermath, after it happened. But he felt it, and some part of him still hoped none of it was real, for something was deeply wrong, as he felt no guilt. Chapter 37, Discovery, Days 1 to 7. 2 weeks off. That's what they said. Time to recover. Time to heal. But no one really explained how you heal from watching your city crumble around you. From hearing the screams of people buried in rubble. From seeing a Viltrumite tear through a skyline like it was paper. Steven didn't talk about it. He didn't cry. He didn't even blink when Nolan came home with the same calm expression he always wore. Debbie didn't say anything either. The house stayed quiet, like it always did after something they weren't allowed to mention. Day 1, Steven didn't leave his room. No sleep, no food, just research. The room looked like a conspiracy board. Diagrams, formulas, old articles, scientific papers on powered individuals. Notes scrawled in shorthand only he could read. His desk was buried under printouts, his walls lined with strings connecting theories. 2 laptops ran non-stop, screens glowing softly in the dim light. A tablet flicked between footage and forum screenshots, while a phone buzzed endlessly from downloaded archives he barely skimmed. It looked messy, but it wasn't. It was structured chaos. He was after the truth. Because during that last fight, when the Viltrumite's punch should have split him in half, he'd felt something shift. Not in his body, but in his understanding. He should have died. Any other person would have. Hell, even Mark might have been out cold from that. But he tanked it, took the hit full force. No shield, no deflection, and he didn't just survive, he recovered midair and retaliated like it was instinct. He always believed it was his bioelectric aura that did that. Everyone did. The academic journals said so. Teachers, experts, even the powered community believed in the aura theory from his previous life. A field of energy that insulated the user, redistributed kinetic force, prevented structural damage from high-impact movement. It made sense. It felt real. But it was wrong. He wasn't relying on an aura to survive hits like that. His body tanked it, his muscles, his bones, his alien physiology, the same thing that made sleep unnecessary and let him float in the upper atmosphere without oxygen. That was where the invulnerability came from. The aura just helped. It didn't protect him. It didn't save him. It only assisted. He remembered a theory from his past life, buried in a Reddit thread so obscure even he had to dig for it in his memories: tactile telekinesis. Not the kind where someone just waves a hand and something floats. This was deeper, internal. It was about touch, contact, will through proximity, the ability to manipulate the world through the sensation of feeling. At first, he thought that was just a cool word from fiction. But when he looked at his own powers now, really looked, it clicked. What if his aura wasn't bioelectric at all? What if it was tactile? Not energy, but intention. Not a biofield, but pressure. He scribbled furiously onto a pad of paper. Aura does not equal shield. Aura equals tactile field. Durability equals physiology plus tactile redirection. Flight equals gravity manipulation via tactile control. The last one sat with him the longest. Because the way he flew, he wasn't pushing off the ground. He wasn't holding himself aloft with energy. He moved by will, directionless, effortless. Thought equaled motion. That wasn't propulsion. That wasn't lift. It was gravity, his own gravitational field, bent and twisted to his needs. Controlled through some unconscious link. And if that was true, that was tactile telekinesis in play without conscious thought. Meaning he'd already done it. Without knowing. Day 2 started with a test. He floated to the roof before dawn, letting the air brush across his skin. Shirtless, barefoot, present, he didn't try to activate anything. He just stood there and felt. And slowly, the world began responding. The air shifted around him in subtle ways. A breeze passed, but he didn't just feel it on his skin. He felt the shape of it. The density, the pressure, the difference in warmth. It was like his awareness extended past the surface of his body. Like his entire aura was a second set of skin, one that wrapped around him in all directions. He picked up a coin and placed it in his palm. He didn't lift it with his fingers. He didn't try to channel energy. He just asked. Mentally, internally, he willed the coin to stay. And it did. For half a second, it shook, trembled, then floated just above his hand. He lost control and it dropped with a faint ping. He didn't celebrate. Not yet. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't repeatable. But it meant one thing. He could manipulate anything his aura touched. He didn't have to forcefully make another field to push his aura to grab an object to move it. It was tactile telekinesis. He was certain now. Later that day, he made a list. 2 columns. Known. Flight equals instinctual gravity manipulation. Durability equals base physiology plus tactile aura redirect. Aura equals not energy, but intent-based contact field. Objects touched can be locked and moved. Unknown. Range of tactile aura. Can it extend beyond immediate surface area? Can it be used for fine control, multiple objects? Passive versus active state. Day 3, he pushed the limit. He didn't go inside, not even to eat. The backyard became a lab. He placed objects all around. A steel bar, a rubber ball, a book, a bottle cap. He stood in the center, eyes closed, letting the world speak to him through his aura. He tried something new. He imagined his aura as a sphere, 10 meters in radius. A living field, not something he used like a muscle. Something that simply was a domain, a passive extension of his awareness. Not pushing out energy, but accepting feedback. He didn't need to see. He didn't even need to focus. If this worked, the aura would give him enough data to act instinctively. Like second nature, like breathing. The bottle cap shifted first. Just an inch, enough to catch his attention. Then the book flipped open. He turned slightly, and the metal bar hovered for a second before dropping again. Each attempt gave more data. Each success felt more natural. He was getting used to it. His mind adapting. Every movement in the field gave him sensory feedback. Not visual, but tactile. He could feel where things were. He knew how far, how heavy, how fast. Even when he wasn't looking. By sunset, he wasn't just reacting anymore. He was orchestrating. Clumsily, yes, but deliberately. He jotted down one final note on a fresh page of Doombringer Steve, and ripped it and pinned it to the wall in his bedroom. Domain. 10 meters. Total tactile feedback. Range-based control. Perpetual field. It's possible. He underlined it twice. The last entry that night, scrawled in the corner. 10%. That's how far I am. But it's real now. I know what I'm building. By day 4, the backyard had become more packed and dense, with many materials. It was a workshop, a war room, a shrine to progress. Rocks and objects were scattered deliberately around the space, not randomly, but in clusters, weight classes, distances. Stephen stood barefoot in the grass at the center of it all, eyes closed, letting the world speak to him. He didn't flinch when the wind changed. He didn't open his eyes when a bird landed on the fence. He could feel it. Not the sound, not the presence, the pressure, the contact. His tactile field had grown denser, clearer. What once felt like fog now felt like mist. Still fuzzy at the edges, but closer. More defined. Objects entering the field no longer caught him off guard. They appeared in his mind like ripples across a still surface. He began running controlled drills. 1. Lift all 5 coins on the ground, simultaneously. 2. Move them to form a straight line midair, equidistant. 3. Rotate them clockwise at the same speed, different heights. He failed the first time. The second, the fifth, but by the 6th, it started to come together. His mind hurt, his brain flickering with the effort of multitasking beyond its normal scope, but he didn't stop. He could handle it, his mind was built for it now. By day 5, he added more objects, 10, 15, even 20 scattered items. Each one added a new layer of complexity, different weights, shapes, materials. He forced himself to track them all at once, manipulate each one individually while keeping the others stable. At first it felt like juggling blindfolded. Then it felt like writing with both hands at once. Then, it felt like nothing. Just breath. Just motion. He began to understand. The goal wasn't to hold each object with total conscious control. It was to let the field, his domain, carry the load. He directed, but the field executed. He gave it a rule: move anything that enters this space, and it obeyed. The real progress came on the 6th day. He placed a tennis ball behind him, completely out of view. Then, eyes closed, he raised it into the air, rotated it once, then flung it across the yard. No hesitation, no visual, just feel. He laughed, half in disbelief. His journal entry that night was just one line. I don't need to see it. I don't need even a second to think. I just need to will it. On day 7, the domain became passive. He wasn't forcing it anymore. It just existed around him, 10 meters in every direction, humming like a silent radar. Anything that crossed the threshold pinged in his mind instantly. He could move it, stop it, hurl it, or just let it pass. And he didn't have to focus. He trained himself to hold conversations while controlling the field. He watched old broadcasts while manipulating objects around the house. He floated books into his backpack while brushing his teeth. Every test was a success. It wasn't about power now. It was about comfort. The tactile field felt like a second skin, one that never came off. He'd built it by mistake years ago. He just hadn't realized it. Now, it was real. Controlled, consistent, passive, automatic. He could move everything inside it. Books, bottles, bricks, even air, even people, if he wanted. He wrote one final entry that night in bold. Stephen's tactile domain, V1, 100% achieved. Passive, 10-meter radius, complete spatial feedback, instant manipulation, sight not required, multi-target control. Aura equals tactile, aura equals domain. No longer a theory. It's real now. He taped it to the wall beside the first one from day 3, the one that said, 10%. They sat side by side, and Stephen sat beneath them, legs crossed, trying to calm his excitement, pride. Just, be steady, but he failed. He knew the domain was only the beginning. Because he wasn't done. This was step 1, now he needed to figure out what came next, face beaming with absolute joy, but from an outside perspective, it would be a boy with a crazed expression as if the child had taken ecstasy. Ha ha ha, I am becoming a monster. Stephen couldn't help but laugh out loud to himself. Everyone else in the family just think to themselves that Stephen has finally lost it after hearing his laughter. Chapter 38. Application filler to drop the updates rules. Stephen didn't announce anything. He didn't say a word to Mark, to Nolan, or even Debbie. But the domain was always there now. A quiet field, humming beneath his skin, radiating 10 meters in every direction, through walls, through air, through people. Nothing entered it without him knowing. Nothing escaped it without permission. It was like walking around with an invisible web, every strand an extension of his will. And the more time he spent with it, the more natural it became. Every moment was an experiment now. Not just for fights, just everyday use. He didn't waste time. Day 1 of week 2 started before the sun was even up. The yard was quiet, just cold grass and damp morning air. Stephen stood barefoot in the center of it again, but this time, he didn't prep anything. No rocks, no weights, no tools. Just presence. He closed his eyes and opened the domain. It breathed. He felt the ants beneath the soil. The humidity drifting over blades of grass. The subtle rise and fall of his house's outer wall as heat expanded the siding. All of it, just impressions, but real. He couldn't see it, not like radar. It was better. He knew it. He held out his hand, and the air shimmered slightly. Then he walked. Each step was deliberate, not because he needed caution, but because he was feeling. Mapping. Living inside the domain. Not commanding it, living through it. When a leaf detached from a tree 20 feet away and drifted into his field, he stopped. It crossed the threshold gently. Stephen didn't look. He twisted one finger, barely a twitch, and the leaf froze midair. Suspended like time had hiccuped. He exhaled, and with a simple intention, it floated to his hand. Soft, silent. No strain, no effort, just a command. He held it between 2 fingers, crushed it gently, and scattered it with a thought. Then he jumped, and stopped midair. Not by flying, not by effort. He simply willed his body to remain in place. The domain caught him. He wasn't flying anymore. He was suspending himself inside a field he controlled completely. I've been calling this flying the whole time, he thought, but it's not. It never was. What he had called flight was just him lifting and guiding himself through a gravitational field he didn't understand. But now he felt every molecule of pressure around his body. He didn't fight gravity anymore. He bent it, manipulating his own weight within the domain felt like walking through shallow water. The deeper he focused, the more resistance he encountered, but the water obeyed. He rose, spun once, and let himself fall. But he didn't crash. He stopped, 1 foot from the ground, body level. He hovered forward, arms to his side, slow and silent. He didn't fly. He glided through space like it was a part of him. Because it was. Later that afternoon, he tested movement with obstacles. Not combat drills, just control. He set up 6 objects. 2 bricks, a plastic bag, a soccer ball, a crowbar, and an egg. All within range. Then, with eyes closed, he initiated simultaneous movement. The bricks rotated in opposite directions at different speeds. The soccer ball hovered, pulsing in and out like a heartbeat. The crowbar spun end over end like a baton. The plastic bag danced, weightless. The egg hovered perfectly still, no shaking, no drifting. And he, in the center, just breathed. He wasn't thinking anymore, just directing. The domain handled the weight, the coordination, the momentum. He only had to will the idea, and the space around him executed. He didn't look at his hands once. This was his version of combat meditation. His version of peace. But the real test came that evening. Steven didn't intend to spar. He just wanted to move. Feel the city again. He took off toward the outskirts, flying high above streetlights and rooftops. The cold wind battered his skin, but he barely noticed it. The domain was open the whole way, constantly feeding him subtle feedback. Traffic lights blinking, birds shifting in trees, someone sneezing 5 stories below. He wasn't listening, he was feeling everything. Then, just outside the industrial district, he saw movement. 3 figures, one pinned to the wall, the other 2 moving fast. He dove before thinking. It was a mugging, or worse, someone had powers. Something green crackled through the air like poison lightning. Steven didn't land, he didn't shout, he just entered range. And the moment he did, he stopped time, not literally. But that's how it felt. The domain snapped open at full intensity. All 3 figures froze, not because they couldn't move, but because he controlled the space. Their clothes shifted with sudden pressure. Their hair tugged slightly. One of them dropped the glowing blade he was holding, confused. Steven didn't raise a hand. He didn't need to. He simply willed it. The knife launched into the wall like a missile. The mugger flew backward, legs swept out from under him. The second one was pinned down, gently but firmly, unable to rise. The victim just stood there, mouth open. And Steven floated down, arms folded, never touching the ground. He let them up eventually. Told them to run. The victim escaped without a word. The attackers were too afraid to speak. He didn't punch anyone, didn't throw a single blow. He'd weaponized space. And it worked. He returned home in silence. The house was dim. Mark was still asleep on the couch. Nolan wasn't home. Debbie was in the kitchen, cleaning something that didn't need cleaning. Steven walked past them both, up the stairs, back to his room. He sat at the desk, pulled out a notebook, and with a sharp breath, wrote. Tactile domain equals combat ready. Motionless control. Passive response time equals instant. Don't need to hit. Don't need to touch. I just need them to be in range. Then he underlined the last part. This is what it means to be untouchable. He closed the book. The room was silent again. But his mind wasn't. Because this wasn't the end of discovery. This was the start of application. The house stayed quiet. No one checked on him, and Steven didn't go out of his way to be seen. They could all tell he was working. Focused. Nolan didn't ask questions. Debbie didn't knock. Even Mark left him alone. And Steven appreciated that. He needed the time, the solitude. The domain had become muscle memory, present the moment he woke up, humming beneath the skin. It didn't get in the way. It didn't distract. It just was. A 10-meter radius of unbroken, constant awareness. Anything that moved within it sent a signal, not a noise or image, but a feeling, a ripple on calm water. But now that it worked, he needed more. Not wider. He'd tried. Reaching beyond 10 meters was possible, sure, but imprecise. Clumsy. The feedback lagged. The control slipped. He could push it, force his reach further, but it felt like stretching a net too thin. You caught more, but held nothing. So he stopped forcing it. The range would stay at 10. For now. Instead, he turned inward. It started with a flicker, barely noticeable, a pressure trailing under his arm while he hovered above the yard. His domain brushed against him as he adjusted elevation, and for a split second, the field pushed back, not from range, but from touch. That's when he knew. If the domain covers everything outside, he thought, why haven't I built something that covers just me? Not as armor, not as a shield, as contact. The thought bloomed fast. His domain worked because it sensed and touched what entered it. So what if he layered that same tactile field against his skin, directly, constantly? No space between, no delay, a second layer. It came easier than expected. Steven hovered just a few inches off the ground, legs folded, eyes closed. His breathing was steady, his domain was open, but this time, his attention turned inward, not into his thoughts, but into the space his body occupied. His skin was already in constant contact with his surroundings, the air, the light, the temperature. He didn't force the tactile energy outward. He let it sink inward, wrapped it around himself like a thermal layer, thin and invisible, but absolutely present. Unlike the domain, which drifted and pulsed in an outward net, this layer hugged him. Followed every twitch, every breath. And unlike the outer domain, this one was easier to control. Natural. He stretched an arm forward and watched a single drop of rain roll down it, then stop. Mid-slide. His skin hadn't tensed, he hadn't moved, but the drop hung there, trapped on a thin line of will. The second layer held it without effort. Steven tilted his head slightly and let the drop fall upward instead. The smile that flickered across his face wasn't smug, just real. This layer wasn't meant to react, it was meant to obey, and only him. The rest of that day passed without much movement. He didn't lift weights or juggle cans midair. He didn't chase muggers through alleys. He sat in the backyard under light rain, slowly wrapping and adjusting the second layer across his body, refining its grip and its feedback. The goal wasn't perfection. It was responsiveness. He tossed a rock into the air, small, jagged. Let it fall toward his head. It stopped an inch above him. The air didn't shimmer. There was no glow. The layer caught it, redirected it gently to the side. The second layer was always touching him. It didn't need to reach for anything. Anything that reached him was already accounted for. It made everything cleaner. If the domain was the net, this was the skin. By the end of the day, he could feel both fields clearly. He didn't even need to activate them anymore. They were just on. The domain stretched around him like a quiet lake. The layer hugged him like pressure under a weighted blanket. Together, they worked in harmony. He jumped from the rooftop, a straight drop. No stumble, no harsh landing. The moment his foot neared the ground, the outer domain read the Earth's contour, while the second layer softened the descent. Pressure rippled through his calves as he landed, no bounce, no impact. Just control. The next day, he tested the fall. Full drop, no glide, no pause. He leapt from 60 meters up. Didn't slow, didn't adjust, just let himself fall. The wind screamed around him. And then, as the pavement neared, the domain shifted beneath him. Read the pressure changes, the air resistance, the gravel density. The second layer compressed tightly against his limbs. He landed on 2 feet, upright. Not even a sound. Back inside, the quiet settled again. Mark was watching some replay on the TV. Debbie was in the kitchen. Nolan still hadn't returned from his last satellite check-in. Steven passed through the living room unnoticed. He didn't feel invincible. He felt ready. The last days of the 2-week break melted together. He didn't keep track. The only reminder of time was the subtle movement of the sun. That, and the way his body moved. He no longer tested objects one by one. Now he moved through the world, and let it test him. He'd walk through a crowded street and feel everything moving around him. People, bikes, loose change in a pocket, wind fluttering a sign. The domain filtered it all, and the second layer tracked how his body moved through it. Once, someone bumped into him from behind, hard. They staggered back, confused, as if they'd hit a wall. Steven didn't even turn around. The second layer had shifted slightly at the moment of contact. Just enough to keep him standing and keep the other from breaking. Another time, a tree branch snapped and fell while he was walking underneath. He caught it without looking. Or rather, the domain did. The pressure caught it, tilted it aside, it landed a few inches away. He kept walking. In the final evening of the break, Steven returned to the rooftop. Not to test, just to sit. The stars were bright, the air was calm, The world felt quiet. He let the domain open wide. Not to control, but to listen. He felt the usual. The subtle ticks of plumbing in the neighbor's house, the flapping wings of a moth, the vibration of Mark snoring through the floorboards. He lay back, arms behind his head. 10 meters in every direction, space was his. A shield, a sense, a signal, wrapped around that, tightly woven against his body, the second layer moved with his breath. He had what he needed. For now, he wasn't done learning, not even close. He'd only scratched the surface. There were deeper forms of tactile telekinesis, levels of precision that manipulated molecular patterns, manipulated mass, reality, even existence itself. He wasn't ready for that yet, but this control, this constant awareness, was real. It was reliable. And it was his. He looked up at the sky, and for once, he didn't feel anticipation. He felt prepared, because the next time someone tried to knock him down, they wouldn't even touch him. Stephen's red notebook. Full rules 1 to 75. Act normal. Be a kid when you can. Small helps count. Listen on purpose. Ask questions like you don't know anything. If you mess up, stop. Journal everything. Facts greater than fear. Keep the question mark private. Smile and shrug. If people look too long. 2 answers max per class. Make space. Treat everything like it's made of glass. If startled, freeze, don't grab. Eggs equals practice. Don't test things you can't untest. Practice in shade when you can. Track charge by feel, don't depend on it. Measure drain. Sunband before, after drills. Field equals extension, not force. Get under, then lift. Edges matter. Keep it thin until it listens. Receive, don't catch. Let force go through you into ground. Sun helps. Don't chase it at school. Eat when everyone eats. If panic right pointing arrow sun or water right pointing arrow breathe. 4, 4, 4. No tests on living things. Even ants, especially ants. If watched, be ordinary. No big saves at home. Neighbors remember. Deny clean camera angles, cameras grow in pairs. Use the boring answer first. Good ears. If asked, answer small, then ask back. Buys time. Never be the only witness to your own miracle. Call someone, make noise. Share credit, let adults finish the save. Noise before move, break the stare. Borrow other people's eyes. Alvarez. Listen to metal, bolts, hinges, brackets. If field meets machine, receive first, don't fight torque. Build small, test smaller. Sunband VO. X does not equal fashion. Build what helps the day. Sunband, zipper, fries. Fix the creaky hinge before mom notices. Small kindness is greater than capes. Leave the world how you found it. Bins back, doors shut, evidence tidy. Don't try to fly, yet. Don't chase the moon. No night flight experiments. Roof equals slow feet, 3 points of contact. Don't play tag with sky owls. Ignore drones, wave like a kid. Point people, not problems. Show where to go. Make bravery contagious. Bubble breaths for small kids. When someone you love feels heavy, sit with them. Quiet helps. Friends' secrets are theirs. Protect the quiet. If you suspect a mask, don't guess in public. Ask privately, or wait. If you smell sweet wrong, rotten eggs, right pointing arrow back away, right pointing arrow, call 911. Yell the right word. Fire. Gets feet moving. If the window is watching, let the wind be the only thing that moves. If dad asks a specific question, answer a smaller specific truth. Midnight cocoa equals 3 marshmallows. Joy matters. No ranked after midnight on school nights. Brains greater than bragging rights. Online. Never flex weird reflexes. Blend in, sandbag if needed. If laughter feels real, keep it. You're still a kid. Don't coach from the fence unless asked. Progress equals practice, not fireworks. Cone first. Safe noise before move. Borrow tomorrow by sleeping, don't steal it. Rest on purpose. No big tests over people. Desert, ocean, empty sky. Always map 3 exits. Up, down, lateral. Quick sweep before takeoff. Drones, cams, choppers. Throttle discipline. Cap output. Log percent. Cooldown even if, fine. Make loud inanimate noise first. Cones, car alarm, gate clang. Vitals before touch. Breath, heat, pulse via field. After action. 10-minute log. Facts now, feelings later. Leak posture. No hood, hands visible, walk, don't pose. Say nothing. Proximity rule, school, no flight within 5 blocks. Arrive, leave like a normal kid. Responder etiquette. Disarm hazards right pointing arrow hand off to pros right pointing arrow perimeter. Layer swap on purpose. Passive, 10 meters bubble, skin close precision. Charge overflow is real. If sunband redlines, shade plus breathe. Schedule smart. No heavy drills right before class, brain first. Dad home protocol. If his window's warm, microdrills only. Mark first rule. Don't steal his moments, spot quietly, clap loud. Chapter 39, Fallout. Smoke still curled from the edges of the crater, twisting into the sky like ghostly fingers. What had once been the GDA's Utah facility, a marvel of subterranean architecture, fortified against every imaginable threat, was now a blackened scar on the earth. Cecil stared at it through the live drone feed, his expression unreadable. The image flickered occasionally, interference from residual heat and electromagnetic shockwaves. The satellite uplink stuttered as it tracked the teams below, now reduced to hazmat-suited silhouettes picking through the ash. Nothing remained of the above-ground entrance. Even the mountain itself had caved inward, burying untold technology, records, and bodies beneath 1,000 tons of rock. But the operation continued anyway. Because something had to be salvaged. Data cores, backups, pieces of the mainframe that might have survived. If anything had. A tech behind him called out from the new command center, a hastily activated underground base buried beneath an innocuous government building 3 states away. Zone Delta reports recovered fragments from Vol 12. Unreadable, but intact. Thermal shielding likely preserved them. Cecil didn't turn. Flag it. Priority 1. Another tech added. Scavenger Team 3 just breached Sector C. It's bad down there. No survivors. We're still finding gear melted into the floor. Keep scanning, Cecil said flatly. If we can't retrieve data, we're pulling genetic material. Every body part counts. He leaned back in his chair, silent for a beat, eyes still fixed on the crater. Then, patch me through to the Guardians. Not the kids. A brief static burst passed through the audio line as the secure channel opened. Moments later, a wall screen lit up with multiple feeds, the Immortal, War Woman, Green Ghost, and Aquarius. None of them looked surprised to be called. But none of them were prepared for what they were about to hear either. Cecil's voice cut through the feed with surgical precision. Nolan Grayson destroyed our Utah base. There was no pause for dramatic effect. No attempt to cushion the blow. War Woman blinked first, then leaned forward. What? Total loss, Cecil continued. He gave us a 1-minute warning. No lives lost, thanks to the evac protocol. But everything else, gone. Servers, tech, weapons, obliterated. Aquarius made a low bubbling sound that translated roughly as, "Why now?" I don't know, Cecil said. But I have a theory. Green Ghost frowned. He's been quiet for months. Cooperative, even. He trains his sons. He checks in. Why destroy the base now? Cecil brought up an image on-screen. It was from days ago, a still frame of a Viltrumid being punched midair, blurry from speed but unmistakable in outline. This is who Steven fought in the city. Our analysts cleaned the footage up. Look at him closely. The Guardians studied the image. The resemblance was eerie. Not just the cloths, but specifically familiar. The jawline, the posture, even the hairstyle, shorter, rougher, but unmistakably Nolan-esque. He looks like him, the Immortal said quietly. Exactly how Nolan looked when he first arrived on Earth, Cecil confirmed. Down to the facial structure. We know aliens can alter appearance slightly, but this isn't coincidence. It's heritage, likely a brother, a cousin, a squad mate. So what? Green Ghost asked. You think Nolan saw that and panicked? Cecil turned to face the screen now, finally letting his exhaustion show in the lines of his face. I think Nolan's been preparing for this from day one. And I think the base was always a threat to him. To his plan, whatever that is. War Woman narrowed her eyes. You're saying he was never on our side? Cecil didn't nod. He didn't speak. But the silence answered for him. A long pause settled. Then the Immortal leaned forward. What do you want us to do? Cecil replied immediately. Nothing. Confusion rippled across their faces. Monitor him. Track his movements. But do not engage. If he's pushed, he'll escalate. And if he escalates, we won't win, War Woman finished. Cecil nodded once. Not yet. He cut the feed without waiting for questions. Behind him, another tech called out. Sir, we've recovered what looks like a secondary AI fragment. It's booting. Cecil walked to the console. A small shard of core memory flickered on a portable drive. A distorted voice stuttered out of the speaker. GDA, compromised, threat, Nolan Grayson, priority override initiated. He closed his eyes for a moment, then turned back to the room. Double the scav teams. I want every surviving drone analyzed. We find every footprint he left. And the Guardians? One agent asked. Cecil paused, then gave a half shrug. They'll follow orders. For now. He turned back to the screen and watched the static play across the crater once more. But in his gut, the truth was now undeniable. Nolan was never with them. The silence of the backup command room was deceptive. On the surface, everything functioned, lights steady, screens humming, agents moving briskly between terminals, but beneath the routines, tension coiled tight, waiting to snap. Cecil sat alone in the briefing chamber, monitors dimmed, his usual bravado set aside. Across from him stood Donald, his cybernetic assistant and most trusted operative, posture rigid as always. The hum of machines framed their conversation, a dull undercurrent to Cecil's dark train of thought. They'll turn on us, Cecil muttered. All of them, if not now, then eventually. Donald tilted his head. Sir. Cecil didn't answer right away. He stood, walking slowly to a nearby screen and tapping the edge until it flickered to life. Displays of known Viltrumite biology, overlapping with aerial footage of Nolan, Mark, and Steven. Especially Steven. That boy terrified him, not because of what he'd done, but because of what he might do. Cecil pinched the bridge of his nose. We had a chance, he murmured. That blood sample, it could have told us everything. Weaknesses, mutations, something we could use if it ever came to a standoff. Donald nodded. It was housed in Sector 7, which is now Ash, Cecil finished coldly. He turned, face cast in shadow. Nolan gave us 60 seconds. Not because he was being kind. Because he was being thorough. He wanted to wipe every trace of his son's DNA from our systems. He knew we took samples. He expected it. Donald frowned faintly. You believe that was his only goal? No, Cecil said. I think it was just the beginning. He walked back to the main table and tapped a key. The room dimmed as a holomap lit up in 3 dimensions. Earth, surrounded by small glowing indicators, known alien contact points, high alert zones, and 2 red dots labeled Mark Grayson and Steven Grayson. Cecil stared at Steven's node. That kid, he said quietly, I can't even read him. He's not just powerful, he's aware. Too aware. His development rate, it's unnatural. Like he's skipping steps other people need. Mark shows moral restraint, Donald offered. Steven doesn't, Cecil replied. At least, not the same way. He's calculating, cold when it matters. You think it's emotionless control, but it's not. It's focus. Donald nodded slowly. You believe they'll all turn. I don't know that, Cecil admitted, but I have to prepare for it. Because if Mark, Steven, and Nolan ever align against this planet, we're finished. That's not just a threat. That's extinction. He let that hang in the air before continuing. But maybe, Cecil said, more to himself than anyone else, maybe we don't need to fight them. Not directly. Donald raised an eyebrow. Cecil turned, voice sharper now. We guide them, subtly. Nudge Mark and Steven toward mistrust. Get them to question Nolan's motives. Play on the fractures. If we can sow doubt between father and sons. He trailed off, watching a looped video of Steven flying, too fast for the camera to track properly, but the afterimage of his eyes, cold and calculating, burned on the screen. It's the only shot we've got, Cecil whispered. Donald hesitated. And if that fails? Cecil turned toward a wall panel, pressing his hand to a hidden biometric pad. A sealed hatch hissed open. Behind it, files, drives, containers marked project, Cerberus, Ether Protocol, and one folder simply labeled HELLBINDER. Cecil gave a grim smile. Then we stop being the good guys. Elsewhere, deep beneath another city in a hidden base of their own, the Guardians of the Globe convened. The table was silent at first. The destruction of the GDA base weighed heavily on them all. War Woman was the first to speak. We need to admit the possibility Nolan was provoked. Provoked. Immortal snapped. He leveled one of the most secure facilities on the planet. That's not provoked, that's war. I'm not saying he was justified, she replied calmly. But the GDA had his son. And knowing Cecil, they did take samples. Probably blood, maybe more. I'd destroy the 2. Black Samson nodded slowly. That's a fair point. Nolan didn't kill anyone. He gave warning. That's not the villain way. He wasn't trying to make a statement. he was erasing something. And we're just supposed to believe that makes it okay. Immortal's voice rose. What happens next time someone crosses him? A city disappears. Maybe, War Woman said. Maybe not, but we need to consider the bigger picture. Which is, Green Ghost asked quietly, that he's still on Earth. Still training his sons, and still capable of wiping all of us out if we make the wrong move, yet he is still doing hero work. Shapesmith, sitting to the side, looked uneasy. He didn't attack us though. Just the GDA. Yet, Immortal growled, I understand your concern. Aquarius bubbled through his translator. But if we push him, we might force his hand. A passive threat is better than an active one. But for how long? Immortal pressed. One of his kind already came down and wrecked half a city fighting his younger son. What happens when the next one shows up? Or a fleet? There was no answer, because no one had one. I don't trust him, Immortal finally said. I never have, and now, I'm even more sure, he's not here to help. He's biding time. The silence that followed was long and heavy. Then War Woman stood. Then we prepare, quietly. We don't act rashly, but we do act. Contingency teams, observation drones, and we keep the Graysons under surveillance. All three. I agree, said Green Ghost. The others followed, one by one. Even Immortal, he didn't like it, but he knew it was necessary. Because if Nolan ever did decide Earth wasn't worth sparing, there wouldn't be a second chance. Back in the GDA's emergency center, Cecil stood in front of the screen one last time. 3 profiles floated before him: Nolan Grayson, Mark Grayson, Stephen Grayson. He highlighted Stephen's face and zoomed in. The eyes were distant, focused. A boy, barely 12, but already moving like a god. We're not just watching the father anymore, Cecil muttered. We're watching the future, and God help them all if it was already too late. Chapter 40. I tried, rewritten. The school doors groaned open, their hinges protesting like they always did. That sound hadn't changed, neither had the hallway. The same scuffed tiles, the same fluorescent lights flickering overhead, the same banners sagging from the ceiling like tired memories. But the moment Stephen stepped into the school building, he felt it. The air wasn't the same. It wasn't the sterile, fluorescent buzz he'd grown used to. It wasn't the usual chatter and energy of teenagers running on caffeine and stress. No, this was different. The atmosphere had weight now. Tension. It clung to his skin like humidity before a storm. He took 2 more steps forward, and the silence hit like a wall. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Chairs stopped squeaking. A distant laugh choked itself out. Every sound, the shuffling of feet, the crinkling of paper, died in real time. It was like the building itself was holding its breath. Mark, beside him, looked around slowly. What the hell? Stephen kept walking. He didn't want to stop. Stopping meant acknowledging the shift, and right now, he didn't know if he could handle what came next. Eyes locked onto him, hundreds of them, students, teachers, janitors, every single person in sight turned their attention toward Stephen. Some stumbled backward, others stood rooted, hands gripping lockers or books like shields. A girl near the lockers let out a strangled gasp and dropped her phone. Another grabbed her friend's hand and practically ran. Stephen's steps slowed, taking a closer look at the people around him. This wasn't surprise. It was fear, despair, pain, disgust, then, anger. A boy's face twisted into something ugly. Why is he even here? Another voice cut in, sharper. Older. He's the one from the video. Stephen turned his head slightly. Video. Before he could ask, before Mark could speak, a voice called out, hey. Freak. Mark's eyes flared. What the hell did you just say? A boy, a senior, Stephen thought, stepped forward. We know what you did. We saw everything. Stephen said nothing. He didn't know what to say. Then someone shoved through the growing crowd, William. Disheveled, out of breath, panic in his eyes. Mark, Stephen. He held out his phone, shoved it toward them. Look. Mark took it, confused, and watched the screen light up. A drone-shy view of the city. And then, Stephen, locked in brutal combat, buildings cracked, streets shattered. Each punch sent shockwaves across blocks. Screams echoed. Fires burned in the distance. Blood misted the air. It wasn't like the news broadcasts. It wasn't cropped, filtered, or unclear. This was raw, brutal, unmistakable. Stephen's body slamming another through a skyscraper. Their fight toppling a bridge. A crowd crushed under debris as the battle spilled onto a highway. A man screaming over a mangled loved one, The gore of it all felt unreal, almost like a movie that everyone played a part in. Mark stared in disbelief. Where did this come from? Someone leaked it, William said. Reddit, TikTok, Discord, it's everywhere. Everyone's seen it. This morning, before first bell. Mark slowly lowered the phone. Oh, shit, he looked around. The muffled silence in the hallway was gone now. In its place, screams, cries, sorrow, accusations. I lost my cousin in that building. My dad worked downtown, he still hasn't come home. You destroyed our city, you destroyed my family, wailed another voice choked between tears. Stephen didn't move, he couldn't move, he felt them. The words, they weren't just spoken, they were heart-wrenching. I defended you, someone shrieked, you're supposed to protect us. You could have saved more people. You didn't care enough, instead you were showing off. You're a monster. Mark raised his voice, hey fuck off. He risked his life, he fought that thing so none of you had to. The crowd didn't care, they turned on him too. Oh great, you're his brother right? It's only fair that freaks of the same nature defend each other. You his backup plan, you planning to destroy the school next. Maybe you're both ticking time bombs. Mark's jaw clenched, back off. A girl screamed, no, get them out of here. Stephen stood still, his gaze dimming. It wasn't the noise, it wasn't the words, it was the absence inside him. He heard them, every insult, every plea, every tear-stained accusation. And he didn't feel anything. No guilt, no pain, no sorrow, just nothing. He watched them, faces twisted in agony, in rage, and it was like watching strangers grieve on television. Detached, cold, he hated himself for it. Why didn't he feel something? He saved as many people as he could. He blocked that punch, he forced himself through wounds that would have downed tanks. He'd done everything right. Hadn't he? I don't feel bad, he thought. Why don't I feel anything? A bottle flew from the crowd, plastic, half full. It smacked Mark's shoulder and bounced off. More students stepped forward. A riot was blooming. Ms. Nieves, English teacher, posture like a metronome, stepped into the space between Stephen and the crowd. She didn't touch anyone, she just existed there like a line. Back to class, she said to the air. Then, lower, to Mark, side exit. Now. A plastic bottle thumped Stephen's shoe, spun, hissed a little water where it leaked. Mark flared, shoulders up, chin ready. Go, Ms. Nieves repeated. She checked corners and cameras instead of faces. Stephen's hearing narrowed. The fluorescent buzz did a bzzz stutter then steadied. He could feel the weight of all the looking. He let his field tuck in tight to skin, no edges, no ripples, nothing for a lens to love. Don't speak in hostile rooms, he told himself. Don't teach, don't explain, move. The girl with the wet hair said, not louder but sharper, he was on the phone with me. And then, she stopped like she hit a wall in her own throat. Mark's hand found Stephen's sleeve. Not a pull, a suggestion. Stephen stepped back two, left one, the way you do when you don't want a camera to get a clean angle. William angled his body like a shield that doubled as an accident. Ms. Nieves widened the gap with teacher gravity alone. They slid into the service hall. The door swung shut on the noise, turned it into a TV in someone else's house. The hallway smelled like dust and fruit cleaner and a mop that had done too much. A vending machine hummed with coins in its belly. Stephen let his back find the bit of wall where the camera couldn't stare straight. Mark's voice was calm the way bridges are calm. Breathe. Stephen obeyed because it was easier than arguing. In 4, hold 4, out 4. His hands were steady, then not. The steadiness left in pieces, like a stack of coins falling one by one. He didn't feel guilt. That was the wrong word. He felt misfiled. The math had been right. Catch, redirect, break the net before the node, hold the line up. He could still see the woman's shoe in the street, no foot in it, not because it was his fault but because the world had torn in front of him and he was too small to stitch every seam. He swallowed. Words arrived without their cousins. I thought I did it right. You did, Mark said. He didn't sound proud, he sounded here. On the other side of the door, someone pounded once and then didn't again. A distant announcement tried to start and failed. Ms. Nieves's voice cut clean and low, class. Now. The floodgate holding. Stephen blinked hard and one tear made a hot line he didn't consent to. Then another. He hated both for being early to a feeling he hadn't chosen yet. Mark's hand stayed on his sleeve. Not squeezing. Not letting go. I tried, Steven said, quieter. Not an argument. Inventory. I know. When I hit him through the tower, he stopped. Air snagged. He rerouted. I did the math right. Mark nodded. I saw. The door opened a crack. Ms. Nieves slid in, closed it with her hip. She looked like a flag in wind. Admin wants you in the office, she said, eyes on the vending machine instead of their faces. You're not going to the office. You're going out the science wing and going home. Mark almost argued on principle. She cut him off with a small shake of her head. Grief doesn't negotiate in hallways. She pointed with her chin. 5 seconds. Steven exhaled. His body remembered it was 12 and shook once more to prove it. He let the shake happen. He let the second tear burn and be done. He thought about saying sorry. To whom? The air, a camera, the girl with the wet hair. Sorry for not being enough, felt like a lie. Sorry for being here, felt like something monsters say. He said nothing. Ready? Mark asked. No. He nodded anyway. The science wing door breathed them out into cold. The kind of cold that closes arguments. The bike rack made a shadow that was almost a room. Mark steered them into it. Steven looked back once through glass. The hall had returned to movie volume. Faces blurred by reflection. A phone raised. Another. A third. A teacher's arm across a doorway like a bar. He didn't feel like crying anymore. The tears had done their job. Marked the moment, proof of life. The emptiness that followed wasn't numb, it was a table cleared for something else. They don't deserve it, slid through his head with the softness of a thought that thinks it lives here. Not mom, never mom, not Mark, not Debbie's hands, not her garlic-warm kitchen, not the way she says eat like a prayer. But strangers. Strangers who would watch a drone clip and decide your soul from a compression artifact. He pictured Debbie at the sink, smiling at nothing in particular. The thought stepped on the other like a heel. Not yet, he told the cold part. Not around her. A siren went by somewhere not near enough to matter. The sun sat low and uncommitted behind ragged cloud. He could feel its hand anyway. William jogged up, breath clouding, hair worse than 5 minutes ago. He stopped a careful distance away, like approaching deer. I'll talk to, I don't know, people. You'll start a comment war and get suspended, Mark said, not unkindly. True, William said, his mouth twitched. For the record, the video is cropped to make you look huge and him small. It does, narrative work. Steven shrugged without feeling his shoulders. I am huge. In spirit, William said, pointing at him. Then softer. You okay? Steven looked at the chain of the bike rack. One link was slightly bent. Probably a truck had backed up wrong last week. He liked that there was a boring story inside it. I'm going home. I can walk you, William said. Class, Mark told him. Please. William hesitated. Tell your mom I brought cookies and they were great. You didn't bring cookies, Mark said. Tell her anyway, William said, and jogged back toward the doors, body already angling for a fight he wouldn't win but needed to try. Mark waited. He didn't try a speech. He didn't ask Steven to forgive the hallway or understand a video or grow up faster than he already had. Car, Mark said. Feet, Steven said. He didn't want the sky yet. He didn't want the unfair luxury of it. He wanted concrete that didn't have opinions. They walked. Past the side lot, past the trash bins where the lids bang in wind, past the new camera on its smug pole. Steven kept to the fence line. The camera would get a nice shot of chain link in the top of his head if it tried to love him. At the corner, a woman in a minivan looked at him too long and then pretended she hadn't. He made his mouth do the smile that says I'm ordinary, please return to your groceries. She did. Do you want me to call mom? Mark asked. No, Steven said, quickly. Then slower. I want to be the one to tell her. They cut behind the baseball field. The ground there remembers games when no one shows up. A wadded lineup card lay wet near the dugout. He bent and picked it up because litter makes the world feel dishonest. He set it in the trash can like a small kind thing and felt stupid and correct at the same time. Mark kicked a pebble. It went obediently where he asked. You know you did good. I know I did math, Steven said. His voice came out even. That made him proud for a reason he couldn't explain. They reached the street. Houses that had been there yesterday kept being there in the same order. A dog barked twice at nothing and decided it had won. Halfway home, Mark said, you don't have to go back tomorrow. I'm going back, Steven said. Why? Because I live here, Steven said. Then, after a beat, because telling the truth isn't always a speech, and because if I don't, they get to write the story without me standing in the frame. Mark considered that and didn't argue. Okay, a little farther. Mark tried again, because big brothers don't retire easy. You don't owe them. I know, Steven said. He tested the taste of the next sentence and let it sit on his tongue a second. I'm not doing it for them. Mark nodded. He didn't ask who for. He knew. The Grayson front door had one hinge that squeaked and one that didn't. He'd been meaning to fix the squeak, he left it. Right now he liked that their house made a sound only they knew. Debbie was at the sink, apron on, hands in soapy water like something out of a gentler book. She looked up. Her face did that microchange it does when she reads weather before you say anything. Hey, she said, how was? The internet is bad, Mark said, cutting it like a wire. Debbie dried her hands on a towel that had peaches on it and moved to them like a tide. She touched Steven's cheek with her knuckles first, the soft hello, then pulled him in proper. He let his head find the space between her shoulder and her collarbone where the world gets quiet. She didn't ask for the story. She didn't offer a moral. She smelled like garlic and laundry soap and a life that kept happening anyway. I'm making soup, she said into his hair. You're staying for soup. I don't get a vote, he said, voice muffled. It sounded almost like a joke. Good. No, she said, dictatorship. He laughed, small and grateful. Then, just for a second, he let the cold thought from the bike rack float up where he could see it properly. People don't deserve your effort. It looked reasonable. It looked like armor that had been left on his porch with a note that said put me on and you won't get hurt so much. He reached for it. Debbie's hand rubbed a circle on his back, absent-minded and perfect. The armor didn't fit. Not her, he told the thought. Not here. The thought didn't leave. It stepped back a little and leaned against the wall like it was willing to wait. Mark dropped his bag by the couch and found the remote and didn't turn the TV on. Nolan's footsteps did their upstairs pause like they always do. The house kept being the house. Steven pulled away enough to look at Debbie. I want to go back to school tomorrow. You don't owe them, she said, echoing Mark without knowing it. I know, he said. I still want to. She nodded like he'd told her something about weather she'd already expected. Soup first, she said. Then the world. He managed a real smile. Yes, ma'am. Later, when the bowl was empty and the house had decided on quiet, Steven stood in the backyard where the grass remembers feet. The sun had settled into the fence, the cold had opinions again. He let the field sit tight around his skin, a second shirt, no edges. He looked at the sky and did not take it. He didn't need the height. Not tonight. He closed his eyes and said nothing to the air. He didn't promise to be better for them. He didn't promise to be harder, either. He filed the day like a tool and put it in the drawer where he keeps sharp things. Next time, he thought, I don't stay to argue with a camera. I don't explain. I do the math. I leave. He pictured the girl with wet hair and the way Ms. Nieves had stood like a door you couldn't push through, and he let both pictures live in him without picking a side yet. A moth tapped the porch light and failed with dignity. Somewhere, a wind chime practiced vowels. His phone buzzed once. William, Debbie's dictatorship is a humanitarian miracle. Steven typed back, affirmative. He put the phone away. He breathed. The backyard stayed where it was. He was not okay. He was not ruined. He was a boy with a field under his skin and a mother who made soup and a brother who made space. The rest of the world could wait its turn. He went inside. Chapter 41, Corridor, Volume 3. Morning is supposed to be routine. A set of motions that keeps the rest of your life from leaking in. I move through it anyway, eggs, toast, lunch bags, because the alternative is standing still and letting my mind do what it's been doing all week. Replaying, rewinding, freezing on the worst frames. Mark is at the table, shoulders tense, foot tapping hard enough to rattle the chair. 17 and already carrying anger that has nowhere healthy to go. He tries to act normal for my sake. He fails for Steven's. Nolan stands at the counter with coffee, posture straight, face composed. If you don't know him, you'd call it calm. I know the difference between calm and control. This is control. It's the kind that takes effort every second. Steven comes in last. He's dressed already, shoes on, backpack by the door, hair combed. He looks ready for someone to judge him. He's 12, and he's walking into a high school full of teenagers who are 2, 3, sometimes 6 years older than him. He belongs there on paper. Test scores, placements, the neat little proofs that ease, advanced. None of that matters when people are scared. Morning, I say, making my voice steady on purpose. Morning, he answers. He sits with his hands on the table, palms down, fingers still, visible. It's a habit now, a choice, a tactic. It shouldn't be necessary. I slide a plate toward him. Eat. He nods and takes small bites. Careful bites, not because he's picky, because he's measuring himself. I watch him swallow and look away before my face gives me away. My phone buzzes on the counter. I don't pick it up. I already know what it is. The school, the district, another, support, message that reads like a warning. Another set of polite lines that still land as a threat. Mark glances at his own phone and flips it face down so fast it's a reflex. Nolan doesn't look at either of them. Steven keeps eating. The silence starts building into something sharp. Mark breaks it, voice tight. I'm walking with you. Steven doesn't look up. I know. Mark's jaw flexes. If anybody. Mark, I cut in softly, warning him without humiliating him. He exhales through his nose. I'm not finishing it. Nolan finally speaks, voice even. Both of you keep your heads. Don't give anyone an excuse. Mark's eyes flash up. We're not the ones looking for excuses. I didn't say you were, Nolan replies. Same level tone, no heat. That's how you can tell he's holding it in. Steven pushes his plate away even though he's barely touched it. He stands, shoulders his backpack, and moves toward the door with that practiced steadiness that makes my stomach turn. I follow him into the entryway. I adjust his collar without thinking, the way I used to when he was smaller and the worst thing waiting outside was a spelling test. My fingers shake a little. I keep them light. Text me, I say. He nods. I will. I want to tell him to stay home. I want to lock the door and sit with him on the couch and keep him away from all of it. I don't. I can't be the one who teaches him that fear decides where he's allowed to exist. Instead I open the door. Cold air hits us. The street looks ordinary. That's the part that makes me feel insane. Ordinary lawns, ordinary cars, ordinary mailboxes. Except there's a sedan down the block with its engine running. Someone sits in the driver's seat with a phone held up too high to be texting. Nolan's eyes flick to it. Mark notices too. Steven doesn't. Or he pretends not to. They step out. Mark stays close behind Steven, not touching him, but close enough to block a shoulder if he has to. I stand in the doorway until they reach the sidewalk. The door closes. The house is quiet in a way that makes my chest hurt. I pick up my phone. The subject line is still there, waiting. District Safety and Student Support Meeting, mandatory attendance. I turn the screen off. Later, I tell myself. Handle it later. And then I start cleaning a counter that's already clean, because my hands need something to do. I'm across the street from the Grayson house when they come out, pretending my stomach isn't trying to twist itself into a knot. 17 is old enough to be called a young man by strangers and still young enough to get turned into a target online in 5 minutes. I learned that the hard way. 2 nights ago I defended Steven in a thread. I didn't write anything heroic. I wrote what was true. The footage is clipped. People don't know what happened before the camera started rolling. He's 12. A kid. Within an hour, someone had my school name in the replies. My yearbook photo. My mom's Facebook. A DM with a picture of my street sign and 3 words, "We know where you live." I deleted everything so fast my hands shook. I didn't feel brave. I felt stupid. And guilty. Because it didn't just land on me, it added heat to Steven's name. It made him trend harder. So I'm here in person, because online means nothing if you won't stand next to someone when it matters. Hey, I call, forcing my voice to sound normal. Steven nods at me, hat pulled low. Backpack straps tight in his hands. Face controlled. Mark doesn't bother with normal. He looks past me, scanning the street. Ready? I ask. Steven shrugs. Yeah, we start walking. The neighborhood is awake in that half-winter way, people leaving for work, kids drifting toward bus stops. It should be boring. It isn't. A guy in a driveway pauses with his coffee halfway to his mouth and stares at Steven too long. A woman across the street tugs her kid closer without saying anything. A curtain shifts. A phone lifts and dips again. Mark moves closer to Steven by inches, always positioning, always watching angles. He isn't trying to be subtle. I try to talk because silence feels dangerous. So, first period's gonna be a mess, I say. Everyone's gonna. Mark cuts in, low. Don't. I swallow. My throat feels dry. Steven keeps walking as if he can't hear any of it, or as if he hears everything and refuses to react. 3 blocks from the school, I hear an engine coming too fast. Mark hears it first. I know he does because his head turns before mine, his whole body tightening in that alert way that says he's already running scenarios. A dark car rounds the corner hard. Window down, someone leaning out. And then the sound hits, sharp cracks, fast. Gunshots. Real gunshots. My brain stops being useful. I freeze in the middle of the sidewalk, waiting for pain that doesn't arrive yet. Mark moves. He steps in front of me instantly. Broad back, squared shoulders. His hand grabs the front of my hoodie and yanks me down hard. Down. Mark roars. I hit the pavement. Palms scrape. Knees slam. My breath punches out of me. The next shots come immediately, and I hear fabric tear above me. Mark's hoodie jerks as rounds hit it. Not him, too, but not the way it would hit a normal person. The cloth takes it first. His shoulder shifts with the impacts. There's a hole ripped in the sleeve and another near his side, and then the bullets drop away, flattened, skipping across the street. Steven takes one step forward and the air around us changes. I don't have a better way to describe it. It's pressure. It's a boundary. The next volley doesn't reach Mark. It doesn't reach me. It doesn't reach anyone behind us. Rounds stop in midair and then fall. Straight down. A scatter of metal hitting asphalt near Steven's shoes. Steven's face changes. It's quick, but it's there. Cold anger, controlled and sharp. His eyes lock on the car. His jaw tightens. His hands are open, fingers spread. He takes another step. I see it in his posture. He's about to go. He's about to end it. Mark sees it too. Mark turns his head just enough and grabs Steven's forearm hard. No, he snaps. Don't. Steven doesn't look at him. His eyes stay on the car. His breathing stays measured, but his fingers tense. More shots. More rounds stall and drop. The car fishtails, tires screaming, and tears off down the street. It vanishes around the next corner. Silence slams in for half a second. Then the neighborhood erupts, shouting, screaming, doors slamming, someone yelling to call 911. A dog losing its mind. I push up onto my elbows, shaking so hard my arms barely work. Mark stays crouched over me, still shielding. His breathing is steady, but his eyes are wild with anger. Steven stands in the open. Bullets on the ground near his feet. He forces his hands back into a neutral position slowly. Mark's gaze snaps to the sidewalk across the street. A man is filming us. Not the car, not the shooter. Us. Mark lifts his hand and points straight at the phone. Put it down. The man hesitates. Mark's voice goes lower. Put it down. The man lowers it, muttering, backing up. Mark looks at Steven. Camera, he says, short. Steven's eyes flick to the man filming, then back to the street where the car disappeared. His expression stays controlled, but the anger doesn't fully leave. It sits behind his eyes. Mark turns back to me and checks me fast, hands on my shoulders, my arms, my side, rough, practical. Are you hit? He snaps. No, I choke out. No, I'm okay. His eyes flick to Steven. You. Steven shakes his head once. A siren starts in the distance. Mark swallows hard. We're going to school. My question sounding insane. Yes, Mark says. We don't run home. We don't give them that. Steven's eyes meet Mark's for a second. Something passes between them, agreement, restraint. We start walking again. My legs feel wrong. My stomach keeps trying to climb into my throat. Mark stays between me and the street without thinking. That should just feel protective. For half a second, my stupid brain does something else with it. He's right there. He's solid. He's furious for you. He just. I catch myself and feel my face heat. Jesus Christ, William. I look down. I force my thoughts back into place. Mark is my best friend. He's not mine. Being gay doesn't mean I get to turn every intense moment into a crush. We reach the school, and phones are already out. People are already talking. Not about the shooter, about the Graysons. He was there when it happened. Of course he was. Did you see the bullets drop? Dude, that family. Mark's shoulders tighten. His fist flexes once. Steven keeps his face neutral and walks straight through the gate. I follow, throat tight, trying to keep my breathing steady. And I realize, with sick clarity, that nothing I said online mattered. What matters is what people want to believe. I see them before they see me. That's the benefit of standing at your classroom door with a clipboard. People assume you're supervising. They don't assume you're watching for weakness. They walk in buzzing today. It's not normal morning energy. It's excited, sharper. Did you hear? Someone shot at them. Mark got hit. Steven stopped bullets. They say it like gossip. Like entertainment. Like proof. Then Stephen Grayson appears at the far end of the corridor. Hat low. Backpack straps tight in both hands. Steps measured. Eyes forward. 12. The district keeps reminding us he's 12. The emails keep repeating it like it's supposed to make me feel responsible in a warm, maternal way. It doesn't. It makes me feel trapped. Because if something goes wrong, the district won't stand in the hallway. I will. If a parent sues, my name will be in the report. If a kid gets hurt, everyone will say staff failed to supervise. They will say we weren't trained. They'll say we didn't follow protocol. And they'll still leave him here. They dropped a problem into our building and called it support. I watched the bridge footage. I watched it again. I watched the freeze frame people keep using, the one where his face looks hard and unreadable. The comments under it were disgusting. And familiar. People always want someone to blame. People always pick the easiest target and call it morality. Now there's new footage, new angles, a shooter, bullets stopping, Stephen not panicking. People are already cutting it into something they can repeat. What they repeat is never the truth. Stephen walks closer. Kids make room around him. Not polite room, space that says stay away. Phones lift. Some pretend they aren't recording. Some don't. A boy steps out near the lockers, face tight with anger. He points at Stephen. You, he says, voice cracking. My dad was on that bridge. He got hurt. He still can't work. And you're just walking around like nothing happened, while my sister lost her legs because of you, and my mom now dead because my dad can't work. Good. Make it personal. Make it righteous. Give the crowd a reason. Stephen stops. He turns his head slowly. Controlled. Eyes on the boy. No flinch. No scramble to make the right face. That's what people hate most. Not violence. Not power. Composure. I'm sorry your dad got hurt, Stephen says. The boy's face twists. That's it. Sorry. I don't know what fixes it, Stephen answers. The crowd tightens. Phones rise higher. Someone laughs. Quick, excited, the sound kids make when they want something to happen. I could step in. I don't. I shouldn't have to be the one who gets between a crowd and something they're determined to do. I shouldn't have to be the one who risks a parent complaint, a district email, a meeting where they say my name. If the students handle it, it stays student business. If he gets hurt, the district will finally be forced to remove him. Suspension, transfer, alternative placement, anything, gone. I don't say that out loud. I never will, but I think it clearly enough. Mark Grayson shifts behind Stephen, furious, tight, looking ready to explode. Back up, Mark snaps. The boy scoffs. Make me. Phones lift higher. The boy shoves Stephen's shoulder. Stephen rocks back half a step and steadies. No reaction. That doesn't calm them down. It feeds them. Mark's hands clench. Stephen lifts a hand toward Mark's wrist, not grabbing, just touching. Mark stops immediately. That makes something twist in my stomach. Not fear. Resentment. Because it looks like control. It looks like Stephen giving the signal and Mark obeying. The boy shoves again, harder. Stephen's hand lifts instinctively. And then drops. Fingers curl inward as he forces it down. I see restraint. I decide it's a threat. Because that's what the crowd wants, and crowds decide what's true. Come on, the boy says. Do something. Show us. The hallway leans in, faces bright, and the thought in my head is simple and ugly. Hit him. Not one hit, not a warning. I want the kind of beating that leaves bruises in places cameras can't ignore. I want him to look like a child afterward, small and damaged enough that the district can't keep pretending this is reintegration. I want him gone. Then I hear footsteps down the corridor. Vice Principal Hargrove. My stomach drops, not because I'm worried about Stephen. Because I'm worried about being seen doing nothing. My face snaps into place. My voice turns bright. All right, I call, loud and clean. That's enough. Phones away. Everyone to class. Move. They hesitate. Of course they do. They want it to continue. Now, I say, sharper. If I see a phone out, I'm taking it. That gets them moving. Complaints, mutters, disappointed looks. The circle loosens. I step forward and put my body between Stephen and the crowd, perfectly staged. Perfectly defensible. Hargrove arrives and sweeps his eyes over the dispersing students. What's going on? Nothing serious, I say smoothly. Just some excitement. Handled. His gaze lands on Stephen and tightens, not hatred. Liability. Stephen, Hargrove says. Office. Now. Stephen nods once and starts to move. He doesn't argue. He doesn't ask why. He doesn't look at me as he passes. For a second, I see his hand trembling at his side, small, involuntary, then it stills. Hargrove leans in toward me, voice low. We need staff visible today. District's already calling. Meeting tonight. I know, I say, keeping my smile soft. I'll be visible. He nods and walks away. I stay at my door and watch the hallway pretend it never happened. Inside my head, the thought returns, calm and awful. Next time, nobody better walk out at the wrong moment. From the end of the hallway, it reads cleanly, students arriving, a confrontation, a teacher dispersing a crowd, an administrator directing a student to the office. Up close, it's messier. Stephen Grayson stands near the lockers with his hat brim low. His posture is straight, his hands stay open and visible. His face is neutral in a way that invites projection. Mark Grayson stands behind him, tense, scanning, jaw tight. His anger reads as familiar to the watching students. It reads as human. Stephen's restraint reads as something else. Phones angle toward them, a few students hover just out of reach, pretending they're late. Vice Principal Hargrove gestures toward the office. Stephen turns away from the office route and walks toward the nearest bathroom instead. Mark shifts as if to follow. Stephen reaches back and touches Mark's elbow, brief contact, precise. Mark stops. Stephen goes in alone. The door swings shut. The hallway exhales, disappointed and relieved at the same time. The bathroom is loud, not loud like yelling, loud like everything has teeth. The fluorescent lights buzz so hard it feels like they're inside my skull. The sink drips in a slow, patient rhythm that makes my stomach twist. Somewhere in a stall, someone's shoe taps like a code I can't crack. And outside the door is the worst part. I can hear them, not words, not always. Just the sound of bodies. Heartbeats, breaths, the friction of fabric, the tiny electric click when a phone camera focuses. It's like being in the middle of a crowd even when I'm alone. I stand at the sink and grip the edge so hard my fingers ache. The porcelain is cold, it anchors me, kind of. The mirror shows my face, and my face looks wrong. It looks like their story. It looks calm. It looks like I don't care. My stomach rolls. I swallow and it doesn't help. My throat feels too small for my own breath. I turn on the water. The rush is too loud. I turn it down until it's a thin stream. The sound changes but it's still too much. Everything is too much. I stare at myself. I try to make my eyebrows do the right thing. I try to make my mouth soften. I try to look like someone who deserves not to be hit. My hands shake. Stop, I whisper, but it's not to anyone else. It's to me. It's always to me. If I make the wrong face, they say I'm lying. If I make no face, they say I'm a monster. If I cry, they say it's fake. If I don't cry, they say I don't have feelings. Sometimes I think they already decided what I am and they're just waiting for my face to confirm it. I press my palms to the sink and lean forward until my forehead almost touches the mirror. The buzzing gets louder. I can feel my heartbeat everywhere, in my chest, in my throat, in my fingertips. My ears pick up the rhythm of other people outside, too. It's not like normal hearing. It's like being trapped in everyone's bodies at once. A laugh outside the door. Short, mean. My vision warps at the edges, like the mirror is breathing. The reflection flickers for a second and my face looks stretched. Not different, just wrong in a way I can't explain. Like the glass is telling on me. My stomach lurches. I gag and catch myself, hands scrambling for purchase. My knees wobble. The floor feels too far away. Mom, I think. I want to call her so badly it hurts. I want her voice to land on me and make everything stop shaking. I want her hand on the back of my neck the way she does when I'm sick, like she can press the panic out of my bones. But if I call her, they'll say I'm manipulating. They'll say I'm running to my mommy because I got caught being what I am. I slide down the wall until I'm sitting on the tile. It's cold through my pants. My backpack bumps my shoulder. I keep it on because taking it off feels like admitting I might not go back out. My hands are in front of my face, trembling. They look too small and too strong at the same time. Kid hands, not kid hands. I hate that I can't separate those things. I breathe in for 4 counts the way Mom taught me. Out for 4. In again. Outside the door, someone's footsteps slow. Pause. Then move away. They're listening. They're always listening. I squeeze my eyes shut and the lights still buzz through my eyelids. I can't turn it off. I can't turn anything off. My body is a radio stuck between stations, picking up everything. I don't know how I'm supposed to look. That thought lands like a weight. It's not dramatic. It's just true. The boy's face flashes in my head, red eyes, pointing finger, the way his voice broke when he said his dad couldn't work. I can hear it again, like I recorded it. I can hear my own voice answering, calm and even, and I want to slam my head into the wall because I sounded like a robot. But if I hadn't sounded calm, what would I have sounded like? Angry. They would have loved that. Scared. They would have called it an act. Anything real is just fuel. I rub my eyes with the heels of my hands. My skin feels hot. My throat burns like I swallowed sand. I could stay here. I could hide in the stall and wait until the bell stops ringing and the day moves on without me. But hiding becomes proof, too. Proof that I'm guilty. Proof that they were right to be afraid. In Mark looked like he was going to explode. He always looks like that lately when it's about me. Like he's holding the world back with his teeth. If I don't go back out, he'll go back out alone, angry, and they'll point at him and say, "See? That's what that family is." I don't want him to burn for me. I don't want Mom to get that call. I don't want Dad to go quiet in that way that means he's deciding things. My stomach flips again. I breathe through it. I push myself up, palms sliding on the wall. My knees are shaky like I'm learning to walk. I step to the mirror. I practice again. I lift my eyebrows a little. I soften my mouth. I try to look sorry without looking fake. I try to look human without looking weak. It doesn't work. I don't know what works. The bell rings somewhere far away, muffled through walls and fear. It's a clean sound. It doesn't care. I grab my backpack straps and pull them tighter. The pressure on my shoulders feels like armor. I turn the water off. The sudden quiet is worse, but I take it anyway. My hand hovers near the door handle. Outside, I can hear the hallway breathe. I open the door and step out. I go back, not because I'm brave. Because if I don't, the story wins without me even being there to contradict it. When they come home, I hear the front door and my body reacts before my mind does. Relief hits first, sharp enough to sting. Steven steps inside and sets his backpack down carefully. He takes his shoes off and lines them up. He moves with that same controlled precision he used this morning, and it makes my chest tighten. Mark follows, shoulders tight, eyes hard. He tosses his keys into the bowl too loudly. Nolan comes in last, face composed, gaze tracking the room and the boys in the same sweep. He doesn't ask questions in front of Steven. He never has. Food, I say, because food is something I can do. Steven sits when I tell him to. He eats because I'm watching, because he knows I need him to be okay in a way I can see. Mark keeps glancing at his phone, scrolling, jaw clenched. He isn't trying to be polite about it anymore. People are saying he caused the gunshots, Mark mutters, voice rough. Because he was there. I set a glass down harder than I mean to. He didn't cause anything. I know, Mark says. They don't care. My phone buzzes again. I pick it up. Same subject line. More people CC'd now. Titles I recognize. Student safety meeting. Required attendance. To discuss accommodations, risk protocol, and supervised reintegration strategies. The district recommends training resources and supervision supports for all parties involved. All parties. As if my son is an object they have to manage. I read it aloud anyway. Mark's chair scrapes back. They want to put him on a leash. Nolan's expression doesn't shift much, but I see his fingers tighten once against the counter. They want liability coverage, he says quietly. Steven keeps chewing, eyes on his bowl. He doesn't look up. I reach across the table and touch his wrist. He flinches, tiny, involuntary, then settles when he realizes it's me. That flinch stays with me. It sits in my throat. Finish eating, I tell him. Then shower. Then bed. I'm not tired, he says automatically. His voice is calm. His eyelids are heavy. Mark opens his mouth to argue with the universe. Nolan gives him a look. Mark shuts it, breathing hard through his nose. After the shower, I hand Steven clean pajamas anyway, the ones with planets on them, because he's 12 and I refuse to let the world take every normal thing. He sits on the couch with a blanket over his lap. I'm fine, he says, because he thinks that's his job. I don't push. I sit near him. I let the room be quiet. His head dips forward within minutes. His hand still holds the spoon from the ice cream I gave him because I didn't know what else to offer. It slips slowly until it rests against his leg. I kneel beside him and brush his hair back. In sleep, his face stops performing. In sleep, he looks exactly what he is. A tired boy. A 12-year-old who should be worried about grades and friends and stupid school stuff, not risk protocols and meetings and strangers filming the moment his brother stepped in front of bullets. I keep my hand on his shoulder, steady contact, as if I can anchor him to the world by force of will. On the counter, my phone stays lit with the email open, polite words, sharp meaning. I don't close it. I don't pretend those words are harmless. I sit there until the spoon finally slips from his fingers and taps softly against the floor, and the sound is small and ordinary and it makes my throat tighten because ordinary shouldn't feel like this. Chapter 42, Titan Ascends. Rain made the city hum, every neon sign a wet tongue of color, every alley a throat. On the rooftop of a body shop that wore its rust like a badge, Titan crouched by an HVAC unit and listened to the block breathe. He wasn't in costume. He'd never had one. He had a jacket, black and worn, sleeves shoved to his elbows, concrete dust still clung to his forearms. His hands didn't look like hero hands. They looked like hands that had moved furniture, lifted refrigerators, ripped sheetrock, and then kept going because rent was due. Isotope blinked into existence a foot to his left, air popping like a knuckle. Compact, hoodie up, eyes hard and tired. Warehouse crew says they're in position, Isotope said. Our guests are downstairs. Titan nodded. Let him talk. Isotope snapped 2 fingers, and the world took a breath and put them somewhere else. The rooftop 2 blocks over had a big blue sign that used to say Rico's tires before the sea gave up. 3 men waited under the sag of a billboard that promised cheap lawyers. One chewed a toothpick like it owed him money, another kept his shoulder to a brick chimney like it would get mad if he left. The third, Hector, Q-Trait lieutenant with a Q-Trait suit, smiled too wide when Titan appeared. He gestured like a host at a bad party. Titan, Hector said, you're hard to get a hold of. I'm busy, Titan said. You and me both. Hector spread his hands over the city like a magician about to reveal a rabbit. Machine Head's gone, bless his little silicon heart. There's opportunity. I figure you and me. Titan held up a finger. He pulled a scuffed tablet from inside his jacket, tapped it, and turned the screen around. The video was vertical, shaky. A boy 12 years alive and centuries old in the eyes drove a Viltrumit into concrete like it was water. Shockwave. Cars tumbling. Fire. The sound was off. It didn't need it. Hector's smile faltered a millimeter. The toothpick guy swore softly. You know what this is, Titan said. Hector tried on a shrug. Hype. Edits. People love a show. Titan kept the tablet up, froze the frame as Steven, no cape, no mask, held a collapsing weight long enough for 100 kids to scramble away. Look at his hands, Titan said. Not shaking, not showing off, doing math 1. He locked eyes with Hector. You do business sloppy, math 2 like that comes to your door. Toothpick sneered. He ain't coming down to the docks over untaxed crates, man. You're right, Titan said. He isn't. He put the tablet away. Rain ticked on the billboard like a clock. That's me. Hector blinked. You keep guns out of school zones, off the buses, out of the laundromats. You keep your people from throwing hands where moms have strollers. You pay what you owe and you stop pretending Machine Head's got a ghost, and in return my city doesn't attract gods with bad tempers. You get to be boring. You get to be rich. You get to wake up. Hector's smile squeezed into mean. And if I don't like your terms? Isotope didn't move. Titan didn't either. He let the rain fill the space where other men put speeches. Then it gets loud, Titan said. Hector clicked his tongue, thought about old loyalties, new math 3. He gestured with his chin at the third man, the one who hadn't spoken. You got muscle. Enough, Titan said. Hector smirked. We'll see. He snapped his fingers at his boys. Bring them up. Isotope's eyes slid sideways once at Titan. Titan didn't blink. The roof access door banged open. Tether Tyrant came first, hood up, chain snaking from his sleeves like something alive and bored. Magmaniac lumbered behind, steam rising off his skin like he'd taken a bath in a volcano and hadn't toweled off. Tether Tyrant's mask made his voice metallic. We talkin' job interview or funeral? Stand there and look ugly, Titan said. Magmaniac snorted. Done. Hector's laugh was nervous and too loud. Okay, you got a couple of mascots. Titan stepped forward once, closing space by inches, not inches. The billboard's buzz filled the pause. You know why I live? Titan asked. Hector stayed clever. Because you're lucky. Because I listen, Titan said. He tapped his chest with one finger, slow, like a metronome. To this. And to blocks like this. To women who can't take their kids past the corner because your boys adopted it. He leaned, just enough that Hector felt what his feet were standing on. Strong over weak. I get it, the world's not a church. But there are lines. You cross them, you don't get a second conversation. Hector swallowed around his toothpick. He hadn't had one. He still swallowed. Fine, he said. No schools. No laundromats. We keep it quiet. Titan nodded once. Good start. Hector's eyes flicked to Tether Tyrant. And them? They scarebirds, Titan said. You want gods to fly somewhere else. You put up a scarecrow. You don't shoot at the sky. You let the sky get bored and go home. Tether Tyrant rolled his shoulder. The chain arced and hissed. You pay on time, I stand wherever you want. Magmaniac's grin was all teeth and bad ideas. If somebody wants loud, I can do loud. Not here, Titan said, and his tone filed that grin down to something usable. Not on this block. Hector spread his hands again. You want a retainer? You're already paying, Titan said. You just didn't know who. He turned away before Hector could build a new face. We're done. Isotope snapped them out. They blinked into rain again, this time on the loading dock of River East Storage, a long concrete building that pretended to be asleep. A man in a security jacket tried to look invisible behind a cigarette that had lost the will to burn. Inside, rows of unit doors made a maze. Titan didn't need a map. He followed the stink of cold oil and hot plastic to Unit 117. A cheap camera above the door had tape over its light that made it invisible. 4 inside, Isotope murmured. 5 if you count the guy under the table. Count him, Titan said. Isotope smirked and blinked. The door rolled up. Light made a rectangle on the floor. A card table sat in the middle with inventory sheets that were not supposed to exist. Locked crates along the walls had numbers that were supposed to be erased. Evening, Titan said. 3 men reached for guns because that is the disease men get in rooms like this. The 4th froze. The one under the table stayed under the table and regretted choices. Tether Tyrant's chain went out, fast and sure, and took the guns like they'd decided they were embarrassed. Magmaniac planted his hands on the concrete and grinned wider as a heat haze rippled under his palms. The floor bubbled a little, just enough to smell wrong. Don't, Titan said to Magmaniac without looking at him. Magmaniac's grin shrank. Just warming up, boss. Titan ignored the word. He walked to the nearest crate and laid his fingers on the lid like a parent's hand on a fevered forehead. Stone skin crawled over his knuckles and forearms, color of old sidewalks, texture of a building that had outlived 3 owners. He flexed once. Wood cracked like a bad joke. Inside sat guns wrapped in plastic that had been soft yesterday. He looked at the men. This footprint collapses tonight. You got somewhere else to be tomorrow morning. If any of you show up near Garfield Maple Elementary again, I will pull the concrete up and make you eat it, and you will thank me for choosing concrete. The man under the table made a sound like a cough and a promise. Take the unregistered long guns to the scrap yard, Titan told Isotope. Melt what can be melted. The rest, call Alvarez's cousin. He's got that art project with welding. Isotope nodded, mouth twitching. The garden thing. The garden thing, Titan said. Tether Tyrant let the chain slack. So this is what we do. Cleaning crew. This is what we do until the city forgets to put its children in crosshairs, Titan said. He turned to the men again. Find work. There's scaffolding 3 blocks south needs hands. Tell Manny I sent you. He pays cash, 2 weeks steady. If you touch a trigger in my neighborhood this side of a hunting permit, I'll know. And then your moms will know before you do. The men nodded because that was the only shape their necks knew how to make anymore. Let's go, Titan said. They left the unit clean. Doors closed like eyes. He found her at Spin City Laundromat, last of the strip's lights glowing warm against the rain. Tired blue letters buzzed like flies. Inside, a woman in a green jacket fed a washer the way people feed jukeboxes when they need a song to mean something. A little girl sat on a bench with her legs swinging, counting socks like math worked different if your feet were dry. The bell on the door gave up halfway through a ring. The woman looked up, and her face did the fear thing and then the relief thing and then the tired thing. You're him, she said. I'm me, Titan said. She laughed once at how stupid that was and bit her lip. They moved into the candy store, she said. The old one by the bus stop. They sell pills to kids and sticks to men, and they look at my daughter like she's a bill they can't wait to collect. Titan waited. He didn't ask for names. Names make things legal. They said if I called cops again they'd take my door, she said, and check the girl, who was still counting socks like numbers could protect you. Okay, Titan said. What do you want? Her mouth trembled like it wanted to make a speech. She didn't. I want to walk to school and not count corners. He nodded. Stay here. He left by not being in the room. The candy store's sign still said sweet spot in pink script that didn't fool anyone. Bars had taken the place of the candy canes. Inside, two men in hoodies watched a handheld TV playing The Boys Fight on loop, cheering like it was a game, not understanding the math of it at all. Local thread, at Citywatch. You, brick by brick. That kid demolished half a block. Y'all still calling him a hero. You, Southside MOM. My son came home. I don't care if the sky caught fire. You, Tall Paul. Pretty sure the sky did catch fire. Titan stepped through the door and the room tried to get tough. It didn't succeed. You're dizzy, he told the closest man, because the guy didn't know how to stand upright. Sit down. The man sat, insulted that he had obeyed gravity. The other went for a drawer. Titan laid his hand on the counter. Stone crawled. The laminate sank like a soft thing remembers being sand. The drawer didn't open. We're relocating your business, Titan said. This is a free country, the standing man said, even while sitting. Titan took the little TV remote, clicked the sound off. Steven's paused face stared back. The standing man swallowed. You see him, Titan said. He's not coming here. You're not loud enough. But if a kid dies on this block because you flinched wrong, if a cop trips over your temper, if some idiot with a cape decides to prove a point and uses you to draw a line, he might look down. You don't want that. Are you threatening us with a child? The man managed. Titan's jaw ticked. I'm threatening you with me. He pointed to the door with his chin. You're closed. Leave the keys. Leave the cash. If what I find in that back room has pictures of kids in it, I will put you into the wall and then bring you out and then put you into the wall again somewhere your mother never visits. Their faces learned new colors. Keys hit the counter. Isotope blinked in, looked around, wrinkled his nose. Smells like bad decisions. Take the register, Titan said. Drop half at Sister Marta's pantry. Half goes to the clinic. You got it. Isotope's hand closed and the register did not exist anymore. He pointed at the sign. You want the pink script? Leave it, Titan said. Maybe we'll sell candy again. He walked out into rain that had decided to get serious. He let it hit his face and didn't pretend it was cleansing. It was water that fell when it was heavy. That was all. Back at the laundromat, the woman in the green jacket looked up with her hands still in soapy water. It's closed, Titan said. If anyone comes back, call Manny at the scaffold. Tell him Titan said to bring 6 men in a bucket truck. He'll pry the sign down and put the bars in a truck and dump them in the river. Her eyes found the little girl and then found him and then found the washer. She nodded, once, because she'd already used too many words today. Thank you, she said. Titan shrugged. It's a block. She surprised him by smiling. They're all somebody's block. He returned it, small. The girl hopped off the bench and held up a sock like a flag. I found the match. You're hired, Titan said. He left. By midnight, the city had turned from wet to glossy. Titan and Isotope stood on a parking structure 6 floors up, looking down at the lights like they were stars that had made bad choices. Tether Tyrant leaned against a pillar, chain lazing in a slow figure 8. Magmaniac sat on a concrete curb with steam mixing into the night air, hands on his knees, breath hissing the way his name suggested. They looked like problems someone else was going to have if they weren't careful. Tonight they were solutions that didn't need to get used. You sure about hiring the circus? Isotope asked, quiet. They're not for fighting, Titan said. They're for being seen. Tether Tyrant snorted. Rude. Accurate, Titan said. Isotope nodded at the horizon. You think the kid ever comes down here? Titan didn't answer right away. He took his phone out again and played the clip muted. Steven caught a falling thing and put it down soft. He was 12 and his face made men choose who they wanted to be. He shouldn't have to, Titan said. If gods throw buildings, my people shouldn't have to duck. Isotope flicked a look sideways. Your people. Titan tucked the phone away. You heard me. Tether Tyrant cracked his neck. What about, you know? Omni-Man. He said it like a superstition. Titan's mouth went thin. If he wants a throne, he can build it somewhere that isn't my street. Magmaniac chuckled, deep and stupid. You gonna punch Omni-Man, boss? I'm gonna make sure my block doesn't need to know his name, Titan said. They let the night be night a minute. Isotope cleared his throat. Titan, Manny says the city is talking about the boy like, he wobbled a hand. Like he's the problem. Applause is weather, Titan said. We plan for climate. Tether Tyrant frowned. What's climate? Bills and babies and school buses, Titan said. Climate's waking up. Magmaniac scratched his cheek with a fingernail that hissed. You think the kids, good. Titan thought of the laundromat and the sock and the small laugh Mark had made in some clip he'd watched with the sound accidentally on. He thought of the way Steven's hands hadn't shaken. I think his mom raised him right, Titan said. And I think the men in suits are going to try to raise him wrong. Tether Tyrant spun the chain, thoughtful. So we just stand here. Tonight, Titan said. Tomorrow, you're on the scaffolds with Manny at 8. Don't fall. He doesn't pay for stupid. Magmaniac groaned like he had been asked to do math. I hate mornings. You'll live longer, Titan said. Isotope watched the rain weaken into mist. You gonna sleep? Titan rolled his shoulders. Later. Isotope blinked out. Tether Tyrant followed with a metallic laugh. Magmaniac waddled to the stairs because teleporting made him sick. Titan stayed. The city looked back, all those windows like eyes pretending not to stare. He set his palms on the cold concrete wall until his skin remembered the texture and made it his own. Stone crawled up to his elbows and then retreated because it didn't need to be there. Not yet. He pulled the tablet out one last time, thumbed to a different screen, comments, the endless river that kept proving itself a river. At Local News 9, breaking. New footage surfaces from downtown battle. City Council to hold emergency session Wednesday in regulated super threats. Top comments. You, Bridge Dad. My kid is alive because of him. You, taxed enough. Exile. We can't live like this. You, Spin City Green Jacket. I walked my daughter past the corner tonight. Thank you whoever you are. Titan closed it. He didn't keep trophies. He kept receipts. He kept promises. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. He let it go. It buzzed again. He answered. What? He said. A voice like a smile with knives in it slid through the line. Opportunity, it said. We've noticed your civic spirit. Civic spirit doesn't pay well, Titan said. We can fix that, the voice said. Also, we'd love to keep that boy's attention, directed. Titan watched a bus rumble through the green, wipers tired. He smelled wet steel and a bakery that stayed open late when it rained. You want him pointed at someone, Titan said. We want him pointed away from the wrong someones, the voice corrected. Titan smiled without showing teeth. We agree. Excellent, the voice said. We'll be in. Titan hung up. He stood there a while longer because you don't leave a block alone right after you promise it something. When the rain finally forgot what it had started and became mist, he went down the stairs and into the street and vanished into the crowd like a man with a job. In the morning, Rico's tires had a new see someone had found in a pile. The candy store had its lights off and a paper on the door that said under new management in a handwriting that knew how to mean it. Two men in hard hats pulled down bars while a boy 3 doors over pumped air into his bike tires and didn't check the corner 3 times before crossing. On the 4th floor of the parking structure, somebody had left a coffee cup on the ledge. Titan picked it up, tossed it, and kept walking. Chapter 43, Homebound. I keep dinner moving because the house is one wrong sentence away from going sideways. Debbie is at the counter rinsing vegetables, shoulders set, quiet in the way she gets when she's holding the center for everyone else. Mark sits at the kitchen table with his phone face down, leg bouncing hard enough to rattle the chair. Steven stands near the doorway between kitchen and hall, half-present, eyes tracking everything without committing to anything. The district email is still open on Debbie's laptop. Mandatory safety support meeting. A neat subject line for a mess they don't control. The city hasn't calmed since the earlier footage. People still talk about the day Steven got driven through buildings and the street buckled from the impact. They talk about the red glare and the cut through concrete. They talk about how fast it happened, how helpless everyone looked in the video. That was the moment fear set its hook. The drive-by just reminded them that the hook is still in. Mark's phone buzzes again. He doesn't pick it up. The sound is enough. He drags a hand through his hair and stares at the table like he wants to put a fist through it. Steven's face stays neutral. He's good at neutral now. It reads as cold if you don't live with him. I watch the three of them and I make the decision before I say it out loud. We're spending energy on people who will never stop. The school, the district, the strangers online, the ones who want a reason to be afraid. We cannot negotiate with any of that. We can only remove the target. I turn off the burner and set the spoon down. The kitchen goes quieter, not calm, just waiting. Table. Debbie looks up once. She knows what tone means from me. She dries her hands and starts moving plates without asking questions yet. Steven takes a seat carefully, like he's stepping into a situation that will be judged no matter what he does. Mark stays standing until the last moment, then drops into his chair with a sharp exhale. He still won't flip his phone over. I sit across from them and keep my voice level. This ends. The school situation ends. Mark looks up, waiting. Debbie's gaze holds steady. Steven continues to stare at his plate. Debbie starts. Nolan. I saw the email. Mark lets out a short laugh that isn't humor. A meeting. Great. They'll put out a PowerPoint and tell everyone to be nice to my brother. Debbie's eyes cut to him. Mark. I'm saying it's bullshit. Too loud. He catches himself immediately, jaw tight. Sorry. Steven's shoulders jump at the spike in volume. I keep going. They want a protocol. They want a process. They want to feel in control. I pause just long enough to make it land. They don't get that. Debbie's fingers press into her napkin. She doesn't disagree. She just doesn't like where this is going. My plan is simple. Mark's leg stops bouncing. We withdraw Steven from the school. Effective immediately. Mark goes still. What? Steven doesn't move, but his eyes lift fast. We hire private teachers. He completes high school from home. If the work stays easy, he finishes early. Mark pushes his chair back slightly, not leaving, but bracing. So we just pull him out. That's it. It removes him from the daily circus. I keep my tone flat because if I raise it, Mark will match me. No cameras, no crowds, no teachers trying to manage a room instead of teaching. No more daily stress. Mark's face twists. You mean no life, alone, sad, miserable. Debbie's voice is quiet but firm. Mark, don't decide his feelings for him. Mark points, not at me, at the idea. That's what it is. It's hiding. He cuts himself off, looks at Steven. His expression shifts, softer for a second, then hard again. It's isolating him. Steven's mouth opens, then closes. Debbie glances at me, not asking for permission, warning me not to bulldoze. She sits back and takes a breath. Let me talk. I nod once. Nolan doesn't announce decisions the way other people do. He lays them down and waits for the room to adjust. I hear the practicality in it, and I can't pretend I don't want to grab it with both hands. I also can't pretend practical means harmless. Steven has been getting ground down every day. Not by schoolwork, by being watched, by being labeled, by the constant hunger people have for a reaction, a mistake, a moment they can clip and post. After the earlier incident, after the damage and the footage and the red glare, people decided what he is without ever meeting him. The drive-by didn't create the fear. It proved the fear has teeth. Mark hears, withdraw, and hears, locked away. He's stubborn. He wants to fix things by standing in front of them and daring them to try again. He also wants someone to tell him he didn't fail, even though I can see it in his face, he thinks he did. Steven sits with his hands folded, expression neutral. He's learned that showing emotion just gives people more material. I look at Nolan. If we do this, we do it for Steven. Not to make him smaller. Nolan's eyes narrow slightly. He doesn't like being challenged. He listens anyway. So we're specific. I keep my voice calm because this house doesn't need another spark. He can finish early if he wants. That part's fine, but he doesn't skip being a person. Steven's eyes lift to me, cautious, almost suspicious. Nolan's voice is even. This isn't about skipping life. It can become that if we're not careful. I don't say more. I don't need to. Nolan knows how easily a plan turns into a cage when safety becomes the only priority. I tilt my head toward the laptop on the counter. In the district email, mandatory safety and support meeting. Their risk protocol. Nolan's jaw sets. I'm not asking permission from the district to protect my family. I know. I let the words sit a beat, then keep going. And I'm not agreeing because I'm scared of them. I'm choosing what gives him room to breathe. Mark's shoulders drop a fraction. He needed to hear it framed that way. I turn to Steven. If you're home, you still go out. You still see people. You still get to be a kid when you can. His throat moves like he's swallowing something. And university. I look at Nolan while I say it, because this part matters just as much as the withdrawal form. When you're old enough, you go properly. With people your age, social life, choices, not rushing past it just because you can. Steven's gaze holds on me longer now. Mark's mouth tightens. He wants to argue, but he's not sure who he'd be arguing against. I keep my voice steady. Steven, what do you want? He doesn't answer immediately. He glances at Mark, then at Nolan, then back to me. His control is tight, but the strain under it is obvious. Steven sits upright with his hands folded, shoulders high, face blank in the practiced way that usually protects him. When Debbie asks what he wants, his fingers loosen first. The right hand shifts slightly, as if he's letting go of a grip he didn't realize he had. His shoulders drop a fraction. His breath leaves him slow. His eyes soften, and the change is visible. Not dramatic, just real. The corner of his mouth lifts. Then the other, a small, unguarded smile. Debbie freezes with her fork halfway to her plate. Nolan's attention sharpens, still and focused. Mark sees it and his jaw clenches, not because he's angry, but because the relief hits him like proof of something he didn't want to admit. Steven catches himself and tries to pull the expression back. It doesn't fully disappear. I don't mean to smile. It happens before I can stop it, and the moment I feel it on my face I want to shut it down. Reflex, habit, control. But it's already there. Mum saw it, Dad saw it, Mark saw it. My chest feels less tight because for the first time in a while, something sounds simple. Someone is asking me what I want. School hasn't been hard. The work hasn't been hard. The people are hard. The constant watching. The way a room changes when I walk in. The way teachers pretend everything is fine while keeping their eyes on me like I'm a lit match. The way older kids act like I'm an exception they're allowed to comment on. After the earlier incident, it got worse. Everyone already had a file in their head for me. They had footage. They had the damage. They had headlines they read out loud in the cafeteria like they were jokes. Then the drive-by happened, and someone filmed that too, and now it's layered on top. Proof that I'm a target. Proof that being near me is dangerous. Proof that I bring problems to wherever I exist. Mum asked what I want. What I want is to stop walking into a building where people decide what I am before I speak. I want out. My voice is quiet. It comes out steady anyway. Mark shifts like the words punched him. Steven. I look at him. I don't flinch. Not out of life. Out of that place. Dad's gaze stays on me. No softness. Just attention. Mum's face doesn't change much, but her eyes do. Tired. Relieved. Like she's been holding her breath for weeks and didn't realize until now. Dad says, tutors, training, and you still get out. I nod once. Mum says, and you make friends. You're outside. You don't become a shut-in. None of you are allowed to become shut-ins. That's not how I raised you. She looks between me and Mark like she's daring either of us to argue. I won't. I let out a small chuckle, mostly because I can't help it. I don't want to disappear. I just want space to breathe. My mind runs forward anyway. If I'm home, I can sleep. I can practice control without a crowd waiting for a mistake. I can work on my strength properly instead of relying on my domain as a crutch. I can work with Mark. He needs it. He won't say it. He'll act fine, then throw himself at something above his skill level and come home furious at the world and himself. I can help. I can also just be his brother. We can fly. We can hang out. We can be normal when we get the chance. And later, space is still there. The universe doesn't care about rumors. It doesn't film you. Mark's expression stays tight. He looks like he's holding something back. His fear isn't just about me being lonely. It's about losing me. About me becoming safe in a way that makes me distant. I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. My relief could look like I don't care about humans. That isn't what this is. This is pressure coming off my throat. I push my chair back and stand. ... Mark. He meets my eyes. He's trying to be tough and failing. ... I'm not going to disappear. Simple. Direct. ... Fly with me tomorrow. He blinks. ... What? ... After dinner. Just us. No patrol. No fighting. Just flying. His mouth twitches, almost a joke, then he swallows it. ... You're bribing me with a good time. ... I'm giving you a reason to stop looking at me like I'm dying. He looks down, then back up. His voice comes out rough. ... Okay. Mum's hand touches my back once, light, grounding. Dad stands and starts clearing plates like the decision has already turned into steps. I go to the garage because I need space to be mad without blowing up at anyone who doesn't deserve it. The air is colder out here. It smells like oil and dust and old cardboard. The heavy bag hangs in the corner, still. I stare at it for a second and then hit it hard enough to make the chain rattle. It swings back. I catch it, stop it, then hit it again. My phone buzzes. I finally flip it over. More messages, more links, more people I don't know talking about my brother like he's a weapon that might slip. And under that, the stuff about me. Clips of the Mahler fight. Slow motion edits of me getting ragdolled. Comments calling my name stupid. People calling me invincible. Like it's a punchline. And the part that digs deepest. The post saying Omni-Man had to save me. I want to throw the phone into the wall. I don't. I shove it back into my pocket and hit the bag again. My anger is stacked right now. Public hate. Cameras. The drive-by. The earlier footage that made people scared in the first place. The fact I can't protect Steven from being turned into content. The fact I can't protect him from being a target. And my own humiliation. My own insecurity. My own fear that I'm not enough. Then Dad says, pull him out, teach him at home, keep him out of sight. And the worst part is Steven smiled. He smiled because he wants it. Because school has been killing him slowly and I didn't stop it. I hit the bag again. My shoulder aches the way it should. That pain clears my head. Steven's voice echoes in my head. Fly with me tomorrow. He said it like a promise. Like he knew exactly where I'd go with this if he didn't pull me back. I hate that I needed it. I also love him for it. If he's home, I'm there. The thought lands hard and clean. I hear voices inside. Mum and Dad in the kitchen, low and calm, the way they get when they're already in logistics mode. I walk back in. Mum is at the table with her laptop open, phone in her hand, pen ready. Dad stands beside her, already looking at forms on the screen. On the printer tray, a sheet slides out. Withdrawal form, school letterhead, boxes, lines. Mum's voice is calm, polite, edged. ... Yes, immediately, please. We'll need the withdrawal packet emailed tonight. And a list of required coursework and exams. She glances up when she sees me, and her expression softens just a notch. Dad looks at me. ... You'll support this. I nod. ... Yeah. Then I add, because I have to. ... Just don't let him get stuck here. Mum ends the call and sets the phone down carefully. ... He won't. Steven comes in from the garden, the back door clicking shut behind him. I step toward him and bump my shoulder against his, light. ... Tomorrow. He looks up. ... We go up. He smiles, small, quick, and bumps me back, harder. ... Still a shorty. I snorted before I can stop myself. He shifts like he's about to dart past me, and I reach out, catch his wrist, gentle but fast. He tries to twist free, annoyed and amused at the same time. Mum signs the form. The pen scratches. The ink sits on the line. Dad picks up the paper and stacks it with the next one as it prints. Chapter 44, Public Comment. The line starts before the doors. Metal barricades, taped arrows on the pavement, two uniformed cops trying to look relaxed while their eyes keep moving. A second layer behind them, men in dark jackets, earpieces, haircuts you see on federal security. The kind of security hired to justify the cameras. Mark walks a half step behind me, hood up, jaw set, trying to look like he's fine. Nolan's beside us, calm enough that it makes other people cautious. Steven stays between us, hands in his jacket pockets, gaze forward, face unreadable. Phones are already up, not even subtle. People lean over the barricades and point their lenses before we reach the first metal detector. A reporter says our names like she's calling roll. Debbie Grayson. Another voice, louder. Invincible. Over here. Mark's shoulders tighten. He doesn't look, but I see the pulse jump at his throat. A third voice pushes in, closer. Omni-Man. I keep walking. The building is set up like a civic event. Flags, polished stone, a row of folding chairs for overflow, but the entrance feels like a checkpoint. A table with plastic bins. Signs taped to stanchions. No posters. No banners. No disruption. No bags over a certain size. No weapons. A guard holds out a hand. Phones in your hands. Bags on the table. Jackets off. Steven takes his jacket off without a word. Not rushed. Not slow enough to draw attention. Just measured. He lays it flat in the bin like he's done this before. They wand him anyway. The wand passes over his torso, down his sides, around his legs. The guard's face stays professional. His eyes don't. My throat tightens. I keep my face still. Mark drops his phone into the bin like he's getting rid of it. Plastic clacks. He stares at it a beat too long, then looks up and catches a camera aimed through the glass doors. The operator tightens framing. They pat Nolan down last, and I watch the guard's hands hesitate at Nolan's shoulders the way people do when they're aware of what they're touching but can't admit it. We clear the detectors. We get our things back. A staffer with a laminated badge steps in with a customer service tone. Right this way. The Graysons. She says it like a label. The chamber is bigger than the school auditorium, not as grand as a courtroom, and it's set up for cameras anyway. Raised dais at the front with nameplates, microphones, little water pitchers. A podium off to the side with a seal on it. Audience seating packed tight, center aisle and two side aisles that make it easy for lenses to get angles. Press pen to the right, folding tables, laptops open, cords taped down, a bank of cameras already locked on the podium. Two livestream lights clipped near the ceiling. One is already on, red indicator lit. The audience is a mix that makes my stomach twist. Parents from the district, students from the high school, people in polos with district logos, city staff, a few who look like they came for the spectacle and don't bother hiding it. Steven sweeps the room once, fast, then looks away. Mark's eyes keep cutting toward the press pen, like he's daring someone to say something. Nolan doesn't look at them at all. He looks at the dais and the exits. A council aide gestures to seats in the front row. You'll be here. You'll be called in order. In order. Like witnesses. I sit. Nolan sits. Mark drops into his chair hard enough to make it squeak. Steven stays standing for a beat, then sits with careful movement, shoulders set. The murmur behind us doesn't stop. It shifts. People whisper and point, then pull their hands back when they realize Nolan can probably hear them. A man behind me says, "That's the kid." Another voice answers, "Don't stare." Too late. Everyone's staring. The chamber fills with shifting bodies, coughing, paper shuffling. A staff member adjusts the podium microphone twice. Someone checks the livestream feed on a phone and tilts the screen toward a friend. On the dais, city council members sit beside district officials. A superintendent in a suit that looks too expensive for public education. A district safety officer with a tight smile. A police representative in uniform. Nameplates in a clean line. To the right, the press pen holds steady. Tripods, shoulder rigs, phones mounted on small frames. Screens reflecting small versions of the room. The chair lifts a gavel and taps it twice. The sound hits too hard through the microphones. This special joint session of the City Council and District Safety Forum will come to order. The chair's voice is practiced, steady, warm, careful. We are here to address community concerns regarding student safety and recent incidents involving the Grayson family. Camera operators adjust, frames tighten. This meeting is being live-streamed for transparency. The red indicator remains lit. The chair looks down at a paper, then up again with the same concerned expression. We will hear from the family first. Ms. Debbie Grayson, you are called to the podium. My name hits the room and a wave of attention moves through the audience. Not silence. Focus. I stand. My legs feel steady, which makes me angrier than it should. Mark's hand lifts like he might grab my sleeve, then stops. Nolan's gaze turns to me and holds, firm, not soft. Steven doesn't look at me. He looks straight ahead, jaw tight enough to show he's listening anyway. I walk to the podium alone. The cameras track me. I hear small clicks and the soft movement of rigs. I stop behind the microphone. The seal on the front of the podium catches the overhead lights. The chair smiles with the kind of concern that feels rehearsed. Ms. Grayson, thank you for being here. I didn't have a choice. A few heads turn. The chair's smile tightens and resets. We appreciate your cooperation. We'll begin with questions for the record. A district official leans into his microphone. His voice is careful, polite. Can you guarantee your son won't harm other students? I blink once. Slow. No. A murmur ripples through the audience. I keep going before they can act shocked. I can't guarantee anything about any child in this district. Your job is to keep students safe. Mine is to keep my sons alive. The official's mouth flattens. Another voice, a woman from the dais, speaking with a gentle cadence. Would you consent to monitoring or supervision as a condition of your son's continued education? There it is. Say yes on camera. No. Sharper reaction this time. Someone in the back says. Of course. I keep my eyes forward. My son has been withdrawn from the school. He is not attending your campus. There is nothing for you to supervise. The chair leans forward, hands folded. This is about community safety, Ms. Grayson. Parents are frightened. Other children have a right to feel secure. So does my child. My voice edges up. I pull it back down. A council member clears his throat, reading off something in front of him. Why should other children be exposed to this risk at all? I stare at him for half a second. Long enough for the cameras to get their shot. They shouldn't. The room stirs. That's why we removed him. A woman in the audience scoffs, loud, trying to pull me into it. I don't turn. The chair's voice stays calm. You're saying the district's role is irrelevant. That the city has no responsibility to ensure public safety. Heat climbs the back of my neck. Don't give them the moment. I'm saying this isn't a school issue anymore. I keep my hands on the sides of the podium. My knuckles want to go white. I keep them normal. This is a family issue. And a public issue made worse by people who want a spectacle. The chair's eyes sharpen for a fraction. The official beside her scribbles like I've confirmed something. Are you accusing this council of exploiting a safety concern? They want the angry mother. They want the clip. I feel my jaw lock. I taste metal. I breathe through my nose. I'm answering your questions. Flat, boring, unusable. The chair waits. Is there anything you'd like to say to the parents watching at home? I lean closer to the microphone, not dramatic, just enough that my voice carries. Yes. A pause. Stop filming my kids. A sharp inhale somewhere in the audience. A few reporters look pleased. I step back. That's all. Thank you, Ms. Grayson. I walk away before she can reframe me. My legs don't shake until I'm 2 steps from my seat. Mark's eyes meet mine. His face is hard, proud and furious at the same time. Nolan gives me a small nod. Steven stays forward, jaw tight. The chair's voice fills the chamber again. Mark Grayson, Invincible, you are called. Mark stands so fast his chair scrapes. I can feel the heat in my face before I reach the podium. Everyone's watching me like they've already decided what kind of joke I am. I can see the press pen shifting, cameras adjusting for my face. I grab the sides of the podium and look out. Rows of faces, a few students I recognize. People who've never said a word to me in person but have definitely typed about me. The chair smiles. Thank you for attending, Mark. Yeah, my voice comes out rough. I clear my throat and it doesn't help. A council member leans into his mic, eyes bright with fake interest. You're a superhero. You operate in public. You understand scrutiny. You gonna ask a question or just hear yourself talk? A few laughs. Some disapproving noises. Let's keep this respectful. A district official takes over, voice smooth. Mark, you've had recent engagements with known criminals. The Mahler twins. Here we go. You lost, correct? My hands tighten on the podium. I got hit. I got back up. But you lost. A camera zooms. I can hear it. Your father intervened. Omni-Man. Correct. My stomach drops and twists. He stepped in. So Omni-Man saved you. I stare at him. I want to say something ugly. I don't. He stopped it. Yes. A woman from the dais lifts her chin like she's gently disappointed. And yet you call yourself Invincible. The word lands heavy. Is that a brand, a performance? I laugh once, sharp. It's my name. A name that suggests you can protect people, supervise situations, keep others safe. His voice stays kind. That's the part that makes me want to break something. If you can't even win, why should we trust you to help supervise your brother? There it is. I swallow. My jaw aches. You shouldn't. A wave of murmurs. Excuse me. You shouldn't trust me to supervise anybody. That's not how this works. The chair's eyes narrow. Then who should we trust, Mark? I lean in, just slightly. You don't trust anybody. You build systems. You do your jobs. You don't dump it on me, a 17-year-old, because it looks good on a live. The room reacts. Some angry, some impressed, most just attentive. Rage and adrenaline buzz in my chest. I hold it back because I can feel what they want from me. They want me loud. They want me losing it. Anything else. My voice is too sharp. The chair doesn't like it. Thank you, Mark. I step away before I say something that'll follow me forever. As I walk back, I catch Steven's face for a second, still, neutral, eyes fixed on a point on the floor. It makes me angrier. It also keeps me steady. I stand when they call my name. People shift. A few glance at the exits. No one says why. The chair's posture straightens. Several council members sit up. I walk to the podium and place my hands lightly on either side. I don't grip. Nolan Grayson, Omni-Man, thank you for attending this session. You're welcome. The chair keeps her voice smooth. We're here for the safety of the public. The safety of students. We'd like to discuss liability and supervision. No. One word. It stops the room for a beat. No. No liability agreement. No supervision contract. No monitoring arrangement. I keep my voice level. My son has been withdrawn from the school. He will not be returning. Your jurisdiction is limited. A district official leans forward, tone polite. Mr. Grayson, with respect, your family lives in this city. Your son exists in this community. Parents deserve assurances. They deserve honesty. I look at the dais, then the audience. You cannot create paperwork that guarantees safety. You cannot get a parent to promise their child will never be harmed or never harm. You can reduce risk. The chair's eyes flicker at the word risk. Then will you cooperate with district safety measures? We will cooperate with lawful requirements. We will not submit to theatrics. That lands. A few heads lift. Pens move. The chair's smile fades. Are you implying this session is not legitimate? I'm stating what it is. I let my gaze pass the press pen, then return to the chair. You want us to agree to conditions on record. To say yes to things you can point to later. To make our family responsible for the public's comfort. A murmur moves through the audience. No, I don't raise my voice. You don't get to force a submission on live. The chair's tone stays, concerned, but it tightens underneath. Then perhaps your son can address the concerns himself. Since he is, as you say, part of this community. Put the boy on the mic. I don't move. Call him. My stomach has been tight the entire session, like a fist under my ribs that won't let go. The chair shuffles papers as if this is routine, as if she hasn't just spent the last hour trying to corner us into promises. The room is restless now. People shifting, phones already in hands. The press pen adjusts again, frames tightening. Steven hasn't spoken once. He hasn't looked up much either. Not hiding, refusing to perform. The chair taps the gavel once. Steven Grayson will now address concerns. My heart stutters. Not from fear of him. From fear of what they want from him. They want a clip. They want the moment a kid says something wrong under pressure so they can replay it, frame it, feed it back to him until it becomes his identity. Steven stands. He moves without hurry. No pause for effect. Just a boy walking to a podium that's too tall for him in a room that has decided he's a story. The cameras track him immediately. The red indicator stays on. A few audience members lean forward. Phones rise higher. Someone whispers, "This is it." Single quote. They're baiting a child. Steven steps behind the microphone. He looks out at the room, taking in faces the way he always does, fast, precise, unreadable. His hand lifts. He touches the mic, adjusts it a fraction. Then he looks up, eyes steady, and the room waits for him to speak. Chapter 45, Clip. Steven's fingers touch the microphone again. He shifts it down a fraction, then looks up. The chamber is tight, bright, quiet. Camera lights on, red indicator lit, phones up in rows. Reporters stay trained on him, lenses steady. The chair doesn't let him start. Quote. Steven Grayson. The chair's tone stays warm, practiced. Quote. For the record, you understand why you're here today. Steven's face doesn't change, his eyes stay on the room. Quote. Yes. Quote. Good. Then we'll proceed with questions. A district official leans in before the chair finishes. Quote. How many civilians died as a direct result of your actions downtown? Steven looks at him, then at the next person on the dais. Then back. Quote. I don't know. Quote. You don't know. Quote. I wasn't counting bodies. A council member lifts a sheet of paper. Quote. Do you dispute that you caused structural collapse on occupied streets? Quote. The buildings were already failing. Quote. Answer yes or no. Did your actions cause structural collapse? Steven's jaw tightens once, then releases. Quote. Yes. A murmur moves through the audience. Phones lift higher. Camera operators adjust, tightening framing. The chair raises a hand, a calming gesture, but she doesn't slow the pace. Quote. When you say you saved as many as you could, how many is that? Give a number. Steven's eyes flick to the front row, where a woman sits with both hands clenched in her lap, knuckles pale. Quote. I don't have a number. Quote. Then you can't claim you saved anyone, can you? A district safety officer speaks next, voice controlled. Quote. Did you prioritize stopping your opponent over evacuating civilians? Quote. If I didn't stop him, more people would have died. Quote. Did you ever disengage to move civilians, yes or no? Quote. Yes. Quote. When? Be specific. A council aide at the side table looks down hard at her notes, pen moving fast, trying to keep up with the pace. The chair's voice again, smooth. Quote. Do you feel remorse, yes or no? Steven's eyes don't blink. Quote. Yes. Quote. If you feel remorse, why doesn't your face show it? A few people in the audience make small noises. Disgusted, satisfied, both. Quote. What stops you from killing someone when you're angry? That one changes the room. People shift. A few glance at the exits. The press table goes quieter. Steven's gaze slides across the audience, then back to the dais. Quote. I choose not to. Quote. That's not an answer. What stops you? Quote. I do. A pause. The chair tilts her head, listening posture. A different official speaks, voice lower, careful. Quote. Have you ever wanted to? The room goes still enough that the coughing stops. Steven looks at the man for a beat, then answers. Quote. Yes. A sound breaks from the audience. A woman inhales sharply. Someone mutters, Jesus. The chair doesn't stop. Quote. Do you consider human life equal to yours? Steven's eyes move, fast, to the press pen. A reporter's lips part as if she's already building the caption. Steven looks back, takes a look at his mum. Quote. Yes. Quote. If law enforcement ordered you to stand down, would you comply? Quote. Depends. Quote. Yes or no. Quote. If it would keep people alive. Quote. Should you be allowed near schools at all? A student in the audience laughs bitterly, harsh. Quote. Do you accept that your presence increases the likelihood of attacks in this city? Steven's mouth tightens. Quote. People attacked us before I was public. Quote. Was the drive-by connected to you? Quote. Yes. Quote. Did you bring that violence into a residential street? The crowd reacts. A few voices overlap immediately. Quote dot dot, my kid was in that street. Quote dot dot, you bring monsters here. Quote dot dot, get him out of our city. A security officer at the aisle steps forward, palm out, keeping the front row back with his body. Quote dot dot, sit down, sit back. The chair's voice cuts in, controlled. Quote dot dot, let him answer. For the record, Steven's shoulders stay squared. Quote dot dot, someone tried to kill my friend. I stopped it. A man in the audience stands up too fast. His face is red, eyes wet. His voice cracks and stays loud anyway. Quote dot dot, my sister is gone. Did you ever look at where you are going, what you are doing? Security moves toward him. He doesn't sit. Quote dot dot, say her name on camera. The chair lifts her hand again, not to shut him down, just to frame it. Quote dot dot, sir, you'll have a chance for public comment. Right now, Steven, did you hear him? The community wants clarity. The man points at Steven, arm shaking. Quote dot dot, look at me, say it, say you're sorry. Steven's gaze holds him for a second. His face doesn't change, not because he doesn't feel it, because there's nowhere safe to put anything in this room. Another voice, behind the man, a woman, sharper. Quote dot dot, my kid was under that bridge, why didn't you catch it sooner? A student stands with her phone up, filming over her shoulder. Quote dot dot, you chose to keep fighting while people were trapped. Someone else shouts from the back. Quote dot dot, how many bodies did you step over to get your shots in? Quote dot dot, how do you sleep at night, after what you did? Quote dot dot, my dad died during your fight. My mom's dead because of you too. Are you proud? Security reaches the first man, tries to guide him down. He resists. His chair scrapes. People nearby flinch back. Phones keep recording. Quote dot dot, sir, sit down now. Quote dot dot, don't touch me. Two officers move in. They get him by the arms. He jerks once, then sags, crying through clenched teeth as they pull him toward the aisle. The chair doesn't call a recess. She keeps it moving. Quote dot dot, Steven, answer the question about the bridge. If you can stop bullets, why couldn't you stop the falling concrete? That one cuts through everything. The room quiets again. Even the guy being removed turns his head to listen. Steven stares at the chair. He doesn't answer immediately. The press pen holds steady, waiting. Quote dot dot, I can't be everywhere at once. Quote dot dot, but you're strong enough, aren't you? You can fly, you are fast. You can stop bullets, without even touching them. What happened to the people under that bridge? Where was that show of strength and power? A reporter whispers into her mic at the press table, voice pitched for livestream. Quote dot dot, they're pressing him hard. This is the moment the public has waited for. The chair leans forward. Quote dot dot, would you submit to registration, monitoring, and containment protocols? A district official adds, quick, predatory. Quote dot dot, if you refuse monitoring, what assurance do parents have besides your word? Another voice from the dais, clinical. Quote dot dot, are you not capable of lying? Steven's jaw tightens again. His hands stay at his sides, visible, still. The chair's final line drops clean and cold under the concern tone. Quote dot dot, do you understand that to this community you are a walking disaster waiting to explode, not a child? A few people in the crowd make approving sounds. Someone whispers, finally. Steven exhales once through his nose. His eyes lift from the dais and sweep the chamber again. Victims' families, citizens, students, staff, press, security, people who look frightened, people who look excited, people who look like they came to watch a kid bleed for them. The chair tries to keep control of the framing. Quote dot dot, Steven, answer the question, for the record. Steven's hand rises, not fast, not dramatic, just deliberate. He touches the mic again. And then he lifts, not a jump, not a burst. His feet leave the floor smoothly, and even rise. The mic stand rises with him, cable sliding off the podium edge without snagging. The microphone floats level with his mouth, perfectly aligned. A few people gasp. A woman in the front row covers her mouth. Someone in the back who was laughing once, distastefully, stops. Heat vision wakes behind Steven's eyes. Red light shows under his lids and along his lashes. Steady, locking anyone who looks at it in place, as they know at any moment they could die. Security shifts immediately, tightening a line around the dais. One officer raises his voice. Quote dot dot. Everyone stay seated. Stay back. A council aide's hands freeze above her notes. Stephen looks down at the podium edge. A red flash, quick and precise. A clean line appears along the wood, slicing it clean off, heat scored, thick and straight, trace amount of smoke bellowing from the singed parts. No shatter, no scattering of bits. The line stops exactly where his eyes stops. He turns his gaze back to the room, eyes still lit. Silence holds for half a beat. Then someone screams, a short, involuntary sound. Chairs scrape, phones shake as people record harder. One student near the aisle says, "Holy shit." Another voice, angry, yells back. Quote dot dot. Put your phone down. A man shouts from the back. Quote dot dot. You see, that's what he is. Someone else, too loud, too thrilled. Quote dot dot. That was sick. A woman near the front snaps. Quote dot dot. Run for your lives, he is going to kill us. Security shoves the aisle back into order. One officer points at a man leaning forward. Quote dot dot. Back, now. The chair's voice comes back, shaky at the edges but still trying to sound like she's in charge. Quote dot dot. Stephen, we need you too. Stephen doesn't let her finish. He speaks into the floating mic. His voice isn't loud at first, but the edge forced everyone to listen closely. Quote dot dot. You asked for numbers. I don't have them. Quote dot dot. You asked why I didn't save them. I couldn't. Quote dot dot. You asked what stops me. I do. Quote dot dot. You're not here for answers. You're here for someone to blame, and you best you could do was pick on me. Quote dot dot. I'm 12. Quote dot dot. You want me to beg so you can feel safe on camera, so you can parade me like a dog. Quote dot dot. You want me to break so you can point and say you were right. Do you all want to die that badly? Quote dot dot. Like I could end this room if I wanted, a simple mistake, and poof, you are all gone. He pauses. The mic hangs steady in front of him. The cable stays loose, not swinging. But I'm not going to. He looks out across the seats again. People filming, people crying, people staring like they've never seen something this exact up close. His voice lifts, clean and flat. Because I am raised right, but as for you all. He stops. Quote dot dot. You can all just go to hell for all I care. The red light in his eyes clicks off. He drops the mic gently back into place. The stand settles without a wobble. Then he turns and leaves the podium. He doesn't walk back to his seat. He rises again, straight up into the aisle space, clears heads and lights and cables without touching anything, and floats toward the chamber doors at a calm, even speed. For a second, the room stalls. People watch him go. Then it breaks. Quote dot dot. Don't let him leave. Quote dot dot. Stop him. Quote dot dot. He threatened us. Security shouts. Quote dot dot. Clear the aisle. Back up. Reporters stand, chairs scraping hard. Camera operators swing rigs toward the exit. A council aide fumbles a paper stack and drops it. Sheets slide across the floor. Stephen reaches the doors. One security officer starts forward like he's going to block him, then stops. He steps aside. Stephen pushes the doors open and goes through. Mark is already moving. He stands so fast his chair tips back. He doesn't catch it. It hits the floor with a loud clack. Debbie Half rises, arm out. Quote dot dot. Mark. Mark doesn't answer. He launches upward in a clean line, clears the row, and goes after Stephen through the doors. The audience freezes again, then a wave of yelling, pointing, filming. Quote dot dot. He flies too. Quote dot dot. That's his brother. Quote dot dot. Omniman's kid. Security shouts over it. Quote dot dot. Back. Everyone back from the doors. Someone tries to rush the exit. Two officers block him and shove him back into his seat. The chair hits the gavel, hard, too hard. The microphone pops. Quote dot dot. Order. No one listens. In a small living room across town, a woman stands with a mug in her hand and doesn't realize she's crushing it until the ceramic cracks. The livestream plays on her TV. The clip already loops on the right side of the screen. A timestamp, a replay icon, a strip of comments scrolling too fast to read in full. Quote dot dot. He's making a move. Quote dot dot. Red eyes. Quote dot dot. Lock him up. Quote dot dot. He's a kid WTF. Quote dot dot. Invincible flew after him OMG. Quote dot dot. This is why we need oversight. The woman's phone buzzes with a text from her sister. Did you see this? She doesn't answer. She watches Stephen's face on the loop. The line on the podium edge. The exactness of it. The way the room went quiet. Her kid, a teenager on the couch, leans forward with his own phone up, recording the TV like he wants proof he saw it live. Holy shit. The woman says nothing. Her eyes stay on the screen. Her jaw works once, tight. Then she sets the cracked mug down on the table with a careful hand. Back in the chamber, Debbie stands at the front row with her hands planted on the chair in front of her. She's shaking. She doesn't sit. The chair keeps hitting the gavel. It does nothing. Security forms a tighter wall at the dais, bodies angled toward the crowd, hands out. A few officers move toward the exits to stop a surge. Reporters push against their own barrier, trying to get past it. A district official leans into his mic, voice too loud, panicked under the professional. This is exactly why. Debbie steps forward into the open space at the edge of the aisle, shoulders squared. No. One word. It cuts through enough that a few people turn. Debbie's voice stays controlled. It isn't soft. You don't get to do that. A woman in the audience yells back. He said he could end the room. And he didn't. Debbie looks at the dais, then at the press pen, then back to the crowd. You baited a 12-year-old on camera. You pressured him well enough until he gave you what you wanted. A man shouts. He deserves it. Debbie doesn't flinch. You don't get to make my son apologize for existing, and you don't get to turn him into a monster for your sanity. Someone near the press pen calls out, trying to turn it into a soundbite. Mrs. Grayson, are you apologizing to the victims' families? Debbie's eyes cut toward the voice. Sharp, controlled. I'm not apologizing for my child being alive. The room reacts. Anger, shock, a few approving noises from somewhere deeper in the seats. Debbie keeps going before they can climb into her words. If you want to talk about safety, talk about the people who filmed him instead of helping. Talk about the people who chase him with phones, accusations, and blame. Talk about the adults in this room who used concern as a weapon on a child. Her hands lift once, palms out, not pleading. Setting a line. Stop filming him. Stop pushing him. Stop treating a child like a monster because it makes for a trendy headline. Security shifts as another person tries to stand, shouting. An officer pushes him back down. Sit. Now. The chair leans forward, trying to regain a script. Mrs. Grayson, we need. Nolan stands. He doesn't raise his voice. The change is physical. People notice anyway. He steps into the aisle with controlled pace and looks at the dais like he's looking at a decision already made. This is over. The chair tries to argue. Mr. Grayson, this forum. Is over. A brief pause. Nolan's gaze moves across the cameras. The press pen goes still. You wanted to trick my son into submission on camera. You got a scene instead. The chair's mouth tightens. A district official leans toward her, whispering urgently, eyes darting to the livestream light. A man in a dark suit stands from the side section near the dais. He hasn't been speaking. He hasn't been introduced. He moves like he's been waiting for this moment. Small earpiece. Posture straight. A staffer steps aside for him without thinking. He speaks into a handheld mic without asking permission. If the concern is structure, there is a path forward. The chair turns toward him, relieved to have a solution voice. And you are. Department of Public Safety Consultant. He says it cleanly, blandly. No agency name that anyone in the room would recognize beyond a label. We can formalize a structured youth hero training and team placement program. Reporters lean in, lenses lock. Oversight, scheduling, supervised training blocks, clear boundaries around schools and public appearances. He looks toward Nolan when he says it, like he's offering terms. It protects the public. It protects the minor. It provides accountability without forcing a family into open-ended monitoring. The chair nods too fast. Yes, this is exactly the kind of solution the community is asking for. The liaison continues, calm. A liaison team can coordinate with your office. A designated training facility, approved supervisors, a code of conduct, a formal channel for incident review. No one says the words, where, or who, on camera. Not yet. The room doesn't need details. It needs the feeling of structure. Nolan watches him for a beat. Looks around, looks at Debbie, who nodded at him. Then nods once. Fine. The chair jumps on it immediately. So you agree to supervision? Nolan's eyes don't leave the dais. I agree to structured training under supervision with clear limits. Not your theatrics. Not your innocent eagerness to break down my son. He turns slightly, voice carrying. And to do it with full transparency with me and my family. If Invincible wishes to join to supervise or spend time with his brother, you will allow it. A wave of murmurs hits the room. Reporters whisper into mics. A student in the audience says, "No way." The chair taps the gavel again, this time softer, trying to look composed. Then this council will. Nolan cuts in. You will receive terms through council. He looks at Debbie, then at the doors Mark went through. We're leaving. Security shifts to make a path. Not because they want to be polite. Because no one wants to be the person who tries to stop the great omniman. Debbie walks beside Nolan, face tight, breath contained. She doesn't look at the crowd. The press pen shouts questions as they move. Mrs. Grayson, do you stand by what your son said? Mr. Grayson, where are you taking him? Is this an admission of guilt? No one answers. Mark catches Steven above the building, not too far from the venue, high enough that the noise drops away and the city turns into movement and light. Steven hovers near freely on what looked like a cloud, shoulders rigid, arms at his sides. His face is blank again, but his breathing is slightly off. Contained, tight. Mark slows hard, stops a few feet away, hands open. Hey. Steven doesn't turn immediately. Mark moves closer, the wind having no effect other than ruffling his cloths, careful, like he's approaching someone who's been pushed too long. You good? Steven's head turns a fraction. His eyes are empty, he just looked down. I'm fine. Mark swallows. His jaw works once. That was pretty intense. Steven's mouth barely moves. They wanted it. Mark nods. Yeah, a beat. Wind moves past them. Below, traffic keeps moving, lights sliding along streets. Mark pushes closer until they're side by side in the air. You're not in this alone, you know. Steven looks at him now. Mark's phone buzzes in his pocket, then again. Messages stacking. Calls. The sound is small and constant. Mark ignores it. If they try to fight you, some program thing, whatever it is, I'm in. Steven's gaze holds him. They'll try to use you too. Mark's voice stays blunt. Let them try. Another buzz. This time it's a call, vibrating hard. Mark finally pulls the phone out, glances at the screen. Nolan. Mark answers without looking away from Steven. Yeah. Nolan's voice comes through, measured. Where are you? Above the building. I've got him. Good. We're leaving. There's a consultant here proposing an idea. Terms will follow. We need you both down. Now. Mark looks at Steven, like he's asking without asking. Steven's jaw tightens once, then he nods. Mark answers into the phone. We're coming. He pockets it. His eyes stay on Steven. You ready? Steven exhales once, small. Then he drops toward the roof edge, smoothly as the air brushes past Domain, not rushed. Mark stays beside him on the way down, matching speed, the fresh breeze turned raging as he pushes against the very surface of it all. Below, the exits are still crowded. Reporters still running, security still shouting, phones still pointed, and the clip is already everywhere. To be continued.